Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It is a Friday. It is a jam-packed Friday show, as they all are in 2022. We've got Greg Garza hopping on with us at 9:30. We've got Mike Conti at 10 o'clock. We've got the fastest MLS weekend preview. It might be the only 30-minute weekend preview in MLS that you can find. Sometimes it runs into stoppage time. We make no guarantees, but we try to shoot for 30 minutes. Occasionally, you get over 10 minutes of stoppage time. You see that sometimes in games. We saw it for some very crazy reasons in Everton Newcastle yesterday, but it happened. A lot of big games this weekend to talk about as well. It is the Clasico weekend. For some reason, you've got it in Argentina where it's actually designed in the schedule. This is the Inter-Zonal weekend in the Copa de la Liga, and it is highlighted by Boca and River at El Monumental. You have two huge rivalries in Mexico. You have the Spanish Clasico with Real Madrid and Barcelona. I had to ask Jarrett just to be sure if Rangers and Celtic weren't playing in some crazy deep fried Mars bar cup or something, because there's always an opportunity for Rangers and Celtic to play in Scotland.
Well, that's coming up soon. They will be playing each other in the semifinal of the next cup competition.
That's the real cup, though, right? Not the deep fried Mars.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be a lot of fun because you have them playing in one semifinal, and Hibs and Hearts playing in the other one. In two teams from Edinburgh who just it gets
they don't care for one another.
No, it gets really testy. No one's going to say it's the old firm. No one would do that, I don't think, but doesn't mean it's not. It gets chippy.
Yeah, there's that. So no Scottish crazy Classico this weekend, but we've got a bunch of others we'll talk about. Biggest news from yesterday, and Jarrett's a little salty about it. At least one, maybe kind of small aspect of it, and I would put it a little
small.
It's in the small category. It's not completely inconsequential, but it's a little bit smaller. We'll get into Jarrett's gripe here in a second. National team announced by the United States for 3 essential World Cup qualifiers. Zach Steffen does make it after making the bench for Manchester City. Likely the starter, although Ethan Horvath has been playing regularly for Nottingham Forest and playing well. Sean Johnson is your other goalkeeper. Serginho Dest is on it, and a few hours before it's announced, he had what looked like a bad hamstring pull for Barcelona in Europa League. There were videos of him being carried to the team bus or hotel. Not a great look. Eric Palmer-Brown makes it here. Miles Robinson makes it here. We'll get back to James Sands in a second, so Jarrett can give us the Scottish perspective on James Sands. Midfield, we know Weston McKennie's out. That's a huge miss. Kellen Acosta likely going to pick up some of that slack. That's asking a lot. Yunus Musa, Gianluca Busio, I think, will be part of picking up that slack as well. Luca De La Torre makes it. Everybody's favorite, he's mine, and I know he's Nico Moreno's. Christian Roldan is in it. Seattle got their big win last night, at least advancing. They got a draw, which was a lot better than what New England did. They go through. Forwards, a whole bunch of them. Gio Reyna is back into the group, which is awesome to see. Jordan Pefok is part of the group, which is awesome to see. No real surprises on the rest of it. Jarrett has a gripe, and it's not a singular gripe that nobody else has. It's one that I did see talked about a lot from people who follow the Scottish game. James Sands here, Cameron Carter-Vickers not, CCV playing regularly as a center back for Celtic. James Sands has been a holding midfielder. He can play center back. He's listed as a defender here, but he is not playing regularly for Rangers right now, Jarrett.
No, and that's my That's my concern. Is are you taking him as a center back? Or is that your plan? Because honestly, no matter how you're taking him, he's played 6 games since he got there. He hasn't started a league game since the end of January, and I get it; it's very competitive in that midfield. But he's played 6 games there. He's come off the bench in the last 2 Europa League games, I believe. Rangers through to the quarterfinal of Europa League. They've got Braga waiting for them now. I think the last time he started was the Scottish Cup competitions. It just hasn't been consistent. And if we're going to take, I thought we were in this mode now where we're taking people who are in form, who are playing. Because if I'm taking someone for the center back role there, I'm taking CCV, who's playing consistently and has been anchoring that back line. I like James Sands a lot. Let me preface all that. Well, let me preface that with I like James Sands a lot. I'm a big fan of James Sands, He just isn't playing much.
Well, one thing I'll give you from a roster build perspective that I know will be lost in the shuffle because we don't talk about these things. James Sands can play in the holding midfield. He can give you a little more versatility. So if that is why, well, that's why I would be saying why. But if that's why he can play holding midfield, CCV can't. I get that. Bart, who is not always a fan of roster selection from Greg Berhalter, does point out that Aaron Long is part of this and was welcomed back in a big way. And Aaron Long's been a favorite of Greg Berhalter for quite a while. And he's been very good for quite a while as well until he was injured. No John Brooks. That's the other big headline here. I think depending on who you're listening to when it comes to the John Brooks saga, there have been some very incomplete narratives out there. Here's what I can see from me looking at this and my gut feelings about it. One, it feels like something has broken down in the relationship between Greg Berhalter and John Brooks because the previous reasons, which were completely valid, John Brooks was in an awful run of form at Wolfsburg. He had lost his spot, awful play. He was not going to get picked based on that. And that was valid in January. Absolutely valid to not pick him because of that. Now he's in a good run of form. He's playing well. You don't pick him. You bring Aaron Long back in, who's coming off injury. You pick James Sands, who's not playing regularly. Now I'm like, well, okay, the reason why you didn't pick him before, gotcha, understand it. He had some bad performances with the national team as well. I'm with you. Now I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why not now and these other guys instead? There does need to be a little bit more of an explanation. I mean, are we getting into a Chicharito kind of situation where he's not being picked and we don't really know the whole story, but you're pretty sure there's a story? I don't know what it is. But to go Sands, and you can say CCV, you could say John Brooks and say, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be CCV. I just have questions on why it was Sands.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're picking Sands because he can give you cover in the holding midfield, that's fine. That's fine. But then you can still ask about Aaron Long. You can still ask about Eric Palmer-Brown. You can ask about some of these other guys. You're not going to ask about Miles Robinson. You're not going to ask about Walker Zimmerman. Those are probably your starters in the games that matter here, the games you're prioritizing. That's fine. Do you not want to bring Brooks in to be a backup? Say it. So the speculation doesn't run wild. Is there some other reason? Give us something. If you don't want to throw him under the bus for something he did that we don't know about, fine. But give us something, because right now I'm really confused as to why some other people are prioritized over him after his form has returned, because form was cited before. If it hadn't been cited before, it's not as big of a deal, right? When you say we're not picking him because his form hasn't been good, which was 100% correct, and there were people who were literally lying on social media telling you otherwise. No, there was op-eds in German media about, it's not good for him right now. And he's not coming back to Wolfsburg. And there's a lot of, okay, what's next? Well, his form's rebounded. Why isn't he here? Can we get an explanation? I don't know. What else stood out to you about the roster, John?
Well, I mean, let me go back to the Brooks thing really quickly before I go forward. So Berhalter says, when he was asked, wasn't happy with club form. Now he's back playing. It becomes about what our game plan is for the window. There's some details in the game I talked to him about. We need to improve to fit into our game model, and we don't have time on Tuesday to improve these things.
That feels like a lot of coach speak.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, you're not improving anybody's play on Tuesday before they play on Thursday. Again, we're back to what a national team is. That ain't happening. If he doesn't fit the way you want to play in these 3 games, that's fine. That's okay. I feel like that's a stretch. I feel like that's a little bit of cover for something else. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm trying to read into it too much, because his form's been good. He's not a dramatically different kind of a center back than the other guys who are here. You know, if you're talking about a guy who, I'm trying to come up with the right example, a center back who is very poor with the ball at their feet, and you want to build out of the back, and you can only really use them in a team that wants to build out of the back late in games where they're just winning headers and that kind of stuff. Fine. That's not John Brooks. There's not a deep reason here to say he doesn't fit, but Aaron Long, Eric Palmer Brown does. I'm not buying that. And if that's the reason, and there's not going to be anything else, okay, that's the coach's prerogative. It absolutely is, and then we have to understand that too. And I think at times there is an expectation from fans or media that the coach should tell us every single thing 100% accurately and not protect what could happen in the next cycle, the next window, the next call up, not bury a player because, hey, you didn't pick him for this time around, not say he's garbage and I'm never going to pick him again. I think at times there's an expectation that is completely and utterly unfair about what coaches should tell you. But what happens in this situation, and we've all seen it, he's made his selections. It doesn't work out. Ooh. Now you're going to say, well, wait a minute. You said this. You took this guy instead. That didn't work. What's the deal?
Yeah.
You're opening up that door. Now, if you get it right, cool, you're good. No worries. But you're adding that potential for getting clapped back at later on. And that's what it comes down to. Because that explanation, I'm sorry, there's not Eric Palmer Brown or James Sands or Aaron Long don't do something dramatically different in their game than John Brooks to that point to say, well, I couldn't fix whatever's wrong in his game on Tuesday, so I can't call him. I'm not buying that because he fit before. It was form that dropped him. And it should have. It 100% should have. Again, people will continue to change the narrative on social media, especially if it's an anonymous USMNT account that spews hatred most of the time, sadly. They'll change it. Here's the story. He played poorly, and then he was playing poorly for his club. He got dropped. Welcome to national team soccer. But his form is back, and now we're coming up with a different reason for why he's not picked. When the best thing to say probably is just look, because his form dropped, other guys got into the mix. They've impressed me. I'm going with this group. That's all you got to say.
Yeah.
That's it. And you don't open up that door to, well, you said that these guys fit what you want to do, and they then played badly because it didn't look like they fit what you want to do. Now I'm confused, Greg.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just be simple with it. Say, look, other guys passed him right now. He's got every opportunity to win the spot back. World Cup roster's not in stone if we qualify. But right now, I'm going with these guys because they're the ones who are in form and have been in form and fit the group. Done.
But no, for me, just really quickly, since I know we're up against it and we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about, glad that Jordan Pefok is involved and have no issue with Josh Sargent not being involved up top.
No.
And then obviously the question for me with Serginho Dest is who do you bring in? Is it Bellomore or Scally? We've seen what George Bello has been able to do on the national team level, and I guess it just comes down to the level of comfort that Greg Berhalter has with one of those three. Bello's played the most minutes of those three, so we'll see what the decision is.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. Question is going to be how you move pieces around. I mean, that's why I'm a little surprised we're talking Bello as much. I would assume Anthony Robinson is going to be the main guy on the left. DeAndre Yedlin's going to be the main guy on the right. Dest can play on either side, but I think he would have played on the right. So why are we talking left backs as the replacement? You can feel like the left backs are further along than the right backs, but why don't you just bring one of both?
Yeah.
You don't have a limitation, and this is the most important window. So if Bello's your next best left back, bring him. Whoever it is, bring him. Who's your next best right back? Bring him. So you got cover, because I don't want to see a situation. You got Reggie Cannon here. Okay, fine. Go ahead and bring one more.
Yep.
It's okay. It's cool. If you want to go get Brian Reynolds, that's fine. If you want to come get Brooks Lennon, that's fine. Have that extra cover. Lennon would make a lot of sense because it's not very difficult for him to travel, and he's healthy, and he's been part of the group. Bring him. Just so you got the cover. If you don't dress him, and tell him straight up, like, hey, we lost Serginho Dest. He could play on either side. We're going to bring a left back. We're going to bring a right back. And you might not dress for any of the three games.
But I need you for cover.
We need you just in case. Absolutely. And if you're going to do anything in just in case, and you're going to go into the the discretionary budget to find a plane ticket for this guy and find some extra gear for them to have one extra person on your roster, I think you can get it done right now. Just be sure. Just be sure. Anyway, I'm sure there will be more conversation about the U.S. men's national team roster. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought because it kind of picked itself with this group. The Sands one was a little bit of The Brooks exclusion was a little bit of a surprise. The Dest injury was really the biggest thing yesterday and how you're going to deal with that. And we'll see ultimately what happens with that. But your roster, it was done. And then he gets hurt a few hours before your announcement. So let's not go after Berhalter because Dest is on the roster. It was already done. And then he gets hurt 3 hours before. So, yeah. Other things on the board before we get into Greg Garza joining us. We had a couple moves in MLS yesterday, Jarrett. We talked about Kamar Lawrence going to Minnesota for the rights to Sean O'Hearn, who was picked in the 2021 Super Draft, and a conditional $50,000 in GAM in either 22 or 23 if certain performance metrics are met. Am I wrong in saying this just feels like Toronto gave Kamar Lawrence to Minnesota?
They just wanted Kamar Lawrence to not be their problem anymore in the year of our Lord 2022.
It seems that way. It really seems that way. New York City have signed forward Gabriel Pereira from Corinthians, a 20-year-old, adding a little more extra depth. He's part of the U22 initiative, a lefty. NYC really starting to go shopping in Brazil quite a bit, Jarrett.
Yeah, they're certainly making a trend of it, and who's to criticize it because they've been successful. This is a team coming off of MLS Cup. They will be in the CONCACAF Champions League semifinal against Seattle. We'll get to that later. You've done good work down there. You're scouting well. Just going to keep on going back to that well, I guess.
When you don't have a CFG club in Brazil, you bring the Brazilians to your CFG club in New York. Not bad strategy. Champions League draw this morning for the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and who's designated as the home team in the final. That one's not quite as important. Quarterfinals, Chelsea and Madrid, City and Atleti, Villarreal and Bayern, Benfica and Liverpool. Those plucky upstarts got the draw that they wanted. And I did see some plucky upstart fans. Yes, Nathan, I'm talking about you, who is saying that UEFA likes to prioritize City, and they messed up. Liverpool gets things too. Let's stop that silliness, please. The plucky upstarts with Liverpool. Good grief.
Yeah.
You got the draw you wanted, and then they will play the winner of Villarreal or Bayern Munich if they get through Benfica, which won't be a walk, but it is the weakest opponent of the 8. The winner of City and Atleti will play the winner of Chelsea and Real Madrid. Now, there is a little bit of a question, and I cannot imagine that it doesn't get resolved about Chelsea playing in this because of sanctions in the EU. If they had played City in this round, it would have been easy. Now they got to play Real Madrid. You got to travel to Spain for that. I don't know why the sanctions would be different from how they just traveled to Lille and why that was allowed to go, and now there'd be some difference in upcoming match, but welcome to people not figuring things out quickly. And also, by the way, Chelsea's bidding process is really starting to heat up. About 20 to 30 different groups have expressed interest publicly. And it looks like they're saying, John, they're expecting somewhere between 10 and 15 official bids.
Today is the deadline for anybody who wants to send anything to Rain Group, and prevailing opinion is that those who got in earlier in the bid process are going to be the ones taken more seriously by Rain Group when it comes to...
That makes no sense whatsoever. That's the dumbest categorization I've ever heard.
And considering that Ricketts came in yesterday as a part of the discussion, I don't think that you would turn down something. You wouldn't turn down Ricketts.
I'm going to turn down the best bid because they took longer to get all their ducks in a row. Yeah. That's really intelligent. I hope that is dumb reporting, because if that's actually part of it, it's like, you got your test done first.
Yeah.
Yeah, you Christmas treed the Scantron. Good job.
You voted. You circled in a lot of B on the way down.
Yeah, good job. We're going to take you first over the better test results. Good grief. Contrary reports in Italy about their upcoming World Cup playoff roster. Some are saying Mario Balotelli will be part of it. Some are saying he will not be part of it. has not been announced as of yet. Mario Balotelli could be making his return. Joao Pedro is, and remember, he was linked to Atlanta United at one point. He could be called up as a forward or a winger, a little more versatile as opposed to Balotelli. But Corriere dello Sport is saying that Balotelli will be part of it. Like Gazzetta dello Sport is saying he will not be part of it. Good times. Maybe they can have a slap fight over what happens. Big games this weekend. Real Madrid hosting Barcelona Sunday, 4:00. Then you can flip right over to anywhere you want to watch the Argentine League because River hosts Boca at 6:00. Then you can take a little bit of a break. When that one ends, you got an hour. Then you got the Clásico Tapatío in Guadalajara as Atlas hosts Chivas, one of the biggest rivalries in Mexico. An even bigger rivalry is Saturday night at 9:00. Tigres hosting Monterrey. It is the weekend of the Clásicos, Jarrett.
It is, and and actually, as we're running up on time here, I'm going to go ahead and get a weighted blanket over to Alex Basine because you mentioned Scantrons, and both of us are now rattled, and neither one of us are okay with this.
You're rattled about Scantrons? What rattled you about a Scantron?
Oh, well, I haven't done a Scantron test in a very long time, and I expected to never do one again, and I'm frankly kind of mad I'm being reminded they exist.
You're afraid of Scantrons? I never feared. I was never afraid of those.
I hated tests. I would much rather do an essay than a test. Like that was when I took the SATs, was when they got rid of the analogies and just did the essay section. It was great. Yeah. Like, 35 minutes to write an essay. Hell yeah, I can do that in my sleep. Please don't make me take a test. I don't like tests.
Like an AP exam.
Oh, Jesus. I took more AP exams than I can count.
That's a whole different thing, John. That has nothing to do with Scantron versus essay. That had
AP
both,
exams were designed to break you.
Yeah, they were. They were tough.
But yeah, I don't like Scantrons.
Okay. I didn't know it was.
They remind me of a more stressful time in my life.
I would have never guessed that Scantrons would have needed a trigger warning, but okay. Sorry, Jarrett.
It's okay. It's okay.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. Alex and I are going to go. We're going to go mourn over the Scantrons being mentioned. So
I'm not going to say sorry, Alex, because that's a gimmick. But
yes.
I'm sorry.
I'll apologize to Alex because when I apologize to Alex, it actually carries a lot of weight.
No, I don't apologize for anything. I reference Scantrons, which are multiple choice tests. I didn't know that would be difficult.
I'll apologize to him because if I apologize to Alex for anything, it carries much more weight because I never apologize to Alex for anything.
That's true. You usually just take shots at his height. So good job. Yes. Jarrett, we'll see you in about an hour.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right. Greg, when was the last time you took a multiple choice test?
What was the test? How are you guys doing?
Good. I didn't know. I referenced Scantron tests, and I don't know when the last time you would have taken like a test in school like that. The multiple choice ones that they'd run through the machine to grade.
Okay. Gosh, that was a long time before I could remember.
Were you more of a multiple choice test guy, or did you like to write the essay and be able to stretch a little bit?
I think writing is my passion. I love to write. I'd probably say I had the ability of being a pretty good BSer when I was young. So I could just write away and just write all these amazing thoughts and amazing descriptions or explanations of whatever it needed to be, and then have the teacher say, "Wow, you're a great writer."
Yep.
It had nothing to do with the subject of what we were learning.
I could handle the multiple choice, but yeah, I felt like I could get away with a little bit more on the essay part where just, I could write pretty well. It's like, okay, I'm going to kind of drift into some other topics here because I'm not good at this one. Cool. Very cool. We had a flashback to that. I didn't mean to trigger people with bringing up multiple choice tests. Interesting game on the weekend with Charlotte. I really enjoyed it. I had a blast calling it. I thought it was a fun one to call. A lot of credit to Charlotte and the way that they came in and approached it. I was really impressed with their setup and the changes they made. What were some of the takeaways of that one for you?
I'm kind of on the contrary. It was difficult for me to watch.
Really?
I want this to be a championship team, right? I root for them
Yeah.
so much, and so I think I'm holding them to I'm honestly a higher standard.
Sure.
I think it's so difficult when you play teams like that, honestly, from the inside, right? It's a lot easier being on the outside and looking in.
Yeah.
But I think with the ability that we do have, and the talent we do have, I want us to be more lethal. I want us to create opportunities, as many opportunities as we can. I know Gutman had the one in the beginning of the game to where we could have finished it off. And I think if that would have finished, I think the floodgates would have definitely opened.
100%.
But yeah, it was a difficult game for me to actually watch. I think maybe just the style of play from Charlotte because of how set back they played, and there were moments that they did think about the press though, and they were a little effective. It was kind of
second half,
it was
especially.
either or, right?
Yeah,
right.
Second half, and that's what I thought was interesting. I wanted to pick your brain on it. Miguel Angel Ramirez doesn't really have true wingers, and that's one of the big issues for Charlotte right now. So halftime, he pulls two players and brings on two fullbacks, plays them up high, and I thought there was a definite difference in Atlanta's ability at that point to be able to build up the play and escape down the wings, because I thought they were killing the wings in the first half. But second half, I mean, possession turns about 50-50. You had more turnovers. I thought it was a disruptive move from Charlotte that actually caused Atlanta some problems.
I think you said it right there, right? In my opinion, Harrison Offal is one of the best right backs or one of the best fullbacks in the league. Even though he's a much older and much experienced player now, I'll be honest and say that's one of the most difficult opponents that I faced.
Really?
Within the league, just of how savvy he is and how much he knows the game. And yeah, he's a great player. So I think that you're right. He created that disruptiveness a little bit in that second half and brought something to the table that wasn't there for them in the first half.
And at the same time, Greg, when you have a keeper like Kalina, who I firmly believe is going to steal Charlotte some points this year because he did some remarkable stuff. And then there's always the one save against Joseph where Joseph, is clapping after the save was done. Great reaction save from Kalina. I think that Kalina at the back is really helping them out so far, and I think he's going to steal them some points.
With those inaugural teams, you need that's your backbone right there, and he seems like a great leader as well. Just from watching that game, I didn't know much about him before then, but I mean, just keeping everyone in sync and keeping everyone in tune. He was very talkative. They kept, I watched it from the TV, so they kept, zooming in on him and just watching him was pretty fun to watch. It's such a long season, right? For a lot of these guys, you kind of you hope for the best for a lot of these inaugural teams, just so they can get their feet wet within the new league, and hopefully they're able to build from that, even though it was a tough result for them. But you root for those teams, right? Because you have so many stabilized teams that have their own success. Atlanta is an example of just one and only team that has success from the very beginning. All these other teams, they take a long time. You look at Toronto, right? It took them, I think, 14 years to make the playoffs. So you look at these other teams within MLS, and you root for the best for a lot of these teams that are brand new.
Yeah, it's I'm impressed with where Charlotte is so far outside of the roster side. I'm impressed with the coaching. You have that huge home attendance, obviously. They have another home game this week. It'll be really curious to see in the smaller configuration what the environment is as New England comes to town. And I wanted to kind of bring up that because Atlanta's got a similar situation with teams who were knocked out of CCL coming to town off a short rest, off of the disappointment of being knocked out. If you're in that Atlanta locker room, I know you're not overlooking an opponent, but you're facing a little bit of a wounded animal coming in Montreal this weekend, who expected more from CCL. They came close. They didn't get it. They haven't had a good start to the season. What worries you about an opponent like that?
Honestly, I think I'm going to go on the contrary again, and I'm rubbing my hands together for that if I'm in that locker room, right? Because you want to be that lion, right? You want to go up to that dead animal and not do much, fight fighting to get a result. So I think for them is honestly just having that momentum that was built from a great win last Saturday on Sunday, and now build from that and understand the situation and take advantage of it. I think I recall a game that we played. I think it was the 7-0 game we played against New England in 2017 in the Mercedes-Benz, and I believe they had lost their midweek game or something like that, and I don't remember if it was Open Cup. I don't remember if whatever it may have been, but something may have happened to where we took advantage of that. And obviously, you look at the results. So I'm hoping it can be one of those games for Atlanta, and those floodgates can open, and Joseph can get an open play goal just to keep the fire going. And I'm really looking forward to see. I'll be at the game, so I'm looking forward to see Thiago Almada as well, to see what he can bring to the table. I think he came in. It was a little overwhelming with what the game was, the last game, and you want to see him on the ball as much as possible, because you can't see that savviness, you can't see that talent that he has with the ball at his feet, and so I'm looking forward to watching a lot of these guys.
And Charlotte's got New England this weekend as well, so it's another situation like that. We talked about Charlotte, we talked about New England with what happened with them, but Greg, let me ask you this. Along those same lines of having that wounded animal coming into town, I know that there's a fine line between confidence, complacency, and overconfidence. How do you navigate that, especially as a counsel to the younger players who may sit there and say, yeah, we got this one, it's locked up, we got this one in the bank? How do you have the younger players lock in and focus on the task at hand instead of sitting there saying, yeah, we got this one, we'll go, we'll just show up and walk right through it?
John, that's a great question, because this is something we ask a lot of our mentees as well, right? We ask them, pride versus ego. We always say pride overshadows ego, right? Pride overcomes ego. And we always ask a lot of these younger guys, what is ego? What is ego for them? For them to understand, how to not use that within the game of play, right? And the things that you can be proud about, right? Having pride is much different than having a big ego. So I think, for these younger guys, is understanding, okay, what can they be proud about? What did they do well in that last game to use those same traits, those same qualities, those same strengths consistently in the next one, right? Instead of thinking, like you said, John, we have this one in the bag, and it's one and done from there, right? You don't want to have these younger guys think that at all. So what can you do to help their mindset to still be proud of the things that they did well, but to not use that in the wrong ways?
I want to ask you about kind of the challenge of facing a team like Montreal from a tactical perspective, because I've been really impressed with Wilfried Nancy and what he's done as a manager there, with a team with some depth, but maybe not those superstars on top of it. They're very flexible. I mean, there's certain things that you're going to see from them all season long, generally 3 center backs, variety of different kinds of wing backs, a lot of times 2 forwards, but sometimes it can be a false 9 and kind of 3 attacking midfielders. When you're facing a team like that is so fluid in the way that they play, what are the challenges for the fullbacks? Because we know Gonzalo Pineda wants to get them forward, that he wants them, as he said about Andrew Gutman, he wants him to be a winger at times. But you're not always sure, is the wing back on my side, is he going to stay? Is he a winger? Is he an attacking player? What goes through your mind as you're kind of reading the game in those moments?
I will give you Tata's best advice for that. Make them defend you rather than you defend them, especially for those fullbacks and those wing backs. That was something that he always told myself or Franco, whoever may have been playing in that wing back, whether it was Julian. And I think that's probably the best advice that I could give these guys for this Saturday. Is if you're that wing back, if you're Andrew and who else is playing on the right, he's kind of switched up, whether it's Brooks or whether it's Hernandez, whatever it may be. It's whatever they can do to make those other wing backs or those other fullbacks defend them as much as possible. I'm looking forward to see the battle. I think one thing that sticks out for me with Montreal is having really good guys that can take really good set pieces. You have Georgi Milalovic, which is, to me, one of the best set piece takers within the league, just putting the ball anywhere he wants. He's very gifted, very talented. So not giving up many set pieces is essential and critical for these guys to think on Saturday.
Let me get into the creators a little bit here, and Atlanta United getting closer and closer to full song and full roster. And you got to see once again why Marcelino Moreno is that creator. With the ball that he gave Jake Mulroney at 90 plus, which was gorgeous and on a dime to create that kind of an opportunity. You're also getting an Atlanta United team that is getting everybody back healthier and trying to integrate into all of this idea. You mentioned Thiago Almada and his first appearance, Marcelino Moreno getting healthy. It's good to see the creators creating the way that we wanted them to.
Of course, yeah. I think the biggest piece right there for especially for Gonzalo Pineda is understanding how to keep everyone happy, right? You want to integrate these new guys to come, or these guys that have so much talent, these guys that are such a huge piece, a part of the team, but these guys that have also been able to achieve and do their jobs when they weren't there. So how do you integrate those guys little by little, gradually, to where everyone understands their role, which is so important. Because a lot of these guys, they have you are winning, you are creating a good environment, and getting taken off like that can be upsetting and can be sometimes frustrating for these guys that have thought they have done their job. So I think that's probably the biggest piece for Gonzalo right now, is how to integrate those guys that do have the most talent, but helping everybody understand their role on the team.
What's the lesson for two young guys who are probably going to be in that situation, and George Campbell and Tyler Wolff, who've played really good minutes and really significant minutes so far this season, but are probably going to get displaced?
I think just waiting for that next opportunity, right? Like I said from the beginning, it's a very long season, and you're going to need those guys again at one point. You take it back to the 2018 Cup when Miles came in, I believe when we played New York City FC here at home. And that was one of the best games I have ever seen Miles Robinson play. He shut it down. And that was a player that, when needed, he knew how to step up. He knew how to take into accountability his responsibilities and everything that he needed to be successful on that field. And that's what you need from those young guys, to have that always in consideration, and just having that perspective of knowing, okay, when my name is called upon, I'm going to do the exact same thing like I did when I had that opportunity from the very get-go of the season.
Yeah, and I think that for the younger players, it's just as important to understand, yes, you were fantastic when you were out there early on when we needed you, but for them in week, Monday through Friday, they've still got to be 100% right there on the practice pitch, getting everything ready, getting everyone else around them ready in these situations, to continue to sit there and say, just because we're not starting, we're still integral, and we're just as important as we were and we are now in a practice situation, getting everyone else ready for play.
Michael and I always, tell our kids or tell teams to trust the process and not the immediate result, right? For a lot of these young players, it's trusting that process. I mean, you take Miles Robinson as a great example of that, right? He trusted that process, kept going, kept working towards it, and look at him now a couple of years later, right? A lot of these guys, you take Paul Arriola, which was a great example within Tijuana, got loaned out to second division in Dorados, or I tell kids all these guys' stories that they have absolutely no idea about. Everybody thinks that a lot of these guys, they had success from the very beginning, and a lot of these guys, they have to go through the same exact things that most rookies do go through. There's a select few. You have the George Bellows that step in and are able to achieve and perform from the very beginning, right? And win that spot over from the very beginning, because that trust is there from the club or the organization. But a lot of these guys is just helping them understand their roles and understanding that their moment will come. They will have their moment to shine. And as long as those opportunities are taken in the best way possible, they'll continue to build towards that.
What's that balance that you tell your mentees and some of the teams and players that you talk about, with balancing that mentality from an individual that, yeah, you have to keep doing what you're doing to get to the end game where you're playing in a top team on a regular basis, and also balancing that with the team's needs, understanding that, hey, the team might not need you to play 34 games this season, but you have to be ready to be called upon when they do need you?
I think just helping them understand their role, right? Their role in that team from the off, right? It's funny. We have so many stories that we tell, and There's a story whenever I stepped into the Mexican League of Tuca Ferretti. He's a Brazilian coach. He coached at Tigres.
Tuca is one of my favorites.
Yes, there you go. Big old mustache Brazilian guy, spoke with a huge accent in Spanish. And one of the stories from Cirilo Salcedo, which was my goalie at Tijuana, played for Tigres, and he said at the beginning of the season he would get a chalkboard, and he would have every single player before that season write down how many games they thought they were going to play that season, with everybody in the same room, and then he would go up after that, right? And he would cross out every single one of those figures, and he would write down how many games every single one of those guys were going to play that season. And some of those guys, they would get a big goose egg, right? They'd get a big old 0, right? And that's coming from the coach's perspective, so those players can understand their role within the team. A very harsh way to do it, right? But at the end of the day, it just helps those kids understand, okay, I'm not there yet, right? I have to work towards getting to where these other guys are, understanding that. And that's just messing with the psychology part of what soccer can be. But that was the way that he did it, right? And I think it's so important for a coaching staff or for the other experienced and older players to help these guys understand that are so young, that, like I said, knowing their role within that team and that their moment will come when they have that opportunity.
I talk about this a lot with the coaching staff. Like, you have to coach to your personality. So, like, Tuca doing that doesn't surprise me. That feels like a Tuca kind of move. That wouldn't be like a Gonzalo Pineda kind of move. His personality would be a little bit different. It's fascinating how sometimes with players getting to that ultimate goal, maybe they don't fit with the personality of a Tuca, but they do fit with a different coach and more comes out of them.
You look at certain players. You look at Will Trapp with Greg Berhalter and Columbus, right? You look at certain players that have been, I wouldn't say made, but have really created the start of their, I guess, stardom within that team or within that situation, that circumstance, with certain coaches, right? Coaches that truly have the belief in those players, and it's great to see. I always go back to Miles, right? I think Miles is a great example of that, because even though he was not as used with Tata, I still believe, and there were frustrating moments for Miles as well. I can tell you that there were so many days to where Miles, and we could just see Miles' frustration or his body language or his demeanor being down, and that's that thing that we talk about. Just trust that process. Tata knew exactly probably what Miles would become, or knew exactly what Miles was capable of. Just going through those growing pains and understanding that was part of that process for him to become that ultimate player, right? And that's Tata is grandpa for short in Spanish. So I think every single one of us really viewed him as a grandpa figure. Whereas I've had other coaches in my careers, or even with Gonzalo Pineda, I'm sure he's such a player's. He's there with them all the time. I'm assuming he's creating that environment because he's in his mind he's still that player coach, right? He's probably getting involved as much as possible in training, and that creates that great environment for a lot of those young guys as well to have that relationship.
Did any of the younger players in the room write down all of the matches on the Tuca Ferretti chalkboard just to show how confident they were in themselves? Or did they dare do that and sit there and say, yeah, I want to play in all of them, to show you how dedicated they were to what was going on there with Tuca Ferretti?
I did not have that question for Cirilo, but I know if I were there, John, I would have wrote a big fat goose egg. Just knowing Tuca and knowing how serious he was. I mean, you look at his success within the Mexican League and how many games he won, how many trophies he won. But you look at the teams that he had, and I want to say there were only like 13 players used the whole entire season, right? The seasons there were 16, 17 games every season. You had the Apertura and the Clausura, but I think that was the reason why he understood that these younger players, they need to understand their role within the team.
That's such an interesting one, and it just does not surprise me at all about Tuca. I always think of that training video. I know you've seen it with the training session where he ends up stomping off because they can't do what he's trying to get them to do. I think they have to bleep him a couple times as he's stomping off.
Hercules Gomez is in that training session, so that was in Cancun. Yeah, he witnessed that. alive. So that's always a great way to pick Hercules' brain after he came from Tigres. He left Tijuana to go to Tigres. So picking his brain, seeing him every once in a while about that situation was pretty funny.
That's so funny. But we're starting to get different managers in MLS who have different approaches. I don't know if we have a Tuca equivalent in MLS, but Brian Schmetzer, Adrian Heath, very different. Bruce Arena, obviously, very different than a Gonzalo Pineda, than probably a Nico Estevez, Miguel Angel Ramirez. You're starting to get a lot more variety than we used to have in the league.
Which is great. You need that variety. You look at the other leagues around the world and you see every single coach's personality much different, right? You compare the Klopps and the Guardiolas, or you compare all these other other coaches that are around the world, or the Mourinhos and whatever they may be, right? I love the fact that we are getting this diversity within our coaching staffs within the league. It helps the league grow even more, and allows us to understand as players, right? Those guys that are players to understand the different qualities that each one of those guys can bring out of us.
Was there one particular style of manager that you gravitated toward as a younger player before understanding, as you got more and more experience, that that's how this guy is? Who were you more, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but early on, who did you gravitate toward as, okay, yeah, I get what this guy is coming? What style kind of was there with you early on?
That's a great question, John, because I think within players knowing their role and how to adapt to each and every coach, there are coaches out there. When I played in Mexico, Daniel Guzman, who I was playing with the national team and wouldn't allow me to go past half field. These are, and that wasn't my best quality. I thought my best quality was to get up and down as much as possible, but you knew that respect, or you allowed that respect to play such a huge role in maybe what they had accomplished, right? Whereas there were other coaches that you had such a great relationship with. They were players coaches that you could talk about absolutely anything. I think Tata was a more reserved, like a grandpa figure, right? Someone that you talk to in serious scenarios. He would joke around every once in a while, but more in a grandpa way, right? Whereas I had other coaches to where you could talk to them about absolutely anything, right? They would come up and sit down and have a 45-minute conversation with you, and that made you feel as comfortable as possible. Another great example was Jaap Stam in Cincinnati, where you knew the achievements that this guy, the level that this guy had played for. The guy is 6'3", 6'4", probably even taller than that. Just massive closet guy, right? And you don't even want to say a word because you think he's gonna two-foot you as the head coach. So it's just different moments of adaptations for a lot of these players. But I think the coaches that did stand out to me the most, I think, are the best times of my career, just those ones that you could have those 45-minute conversations with, the ones that and I think those were the best moments of my career, and understanding that they had that openness. They knew what you were going through mentally. They knew what you were going through on the field, whether it was an injury, whether it was getting through certain moments of adversity. But those moments allowed us to grow as players. And I think every player can name so many different coaches. I was so fortunate to have a variety of amazing coaches throughout my whole entire career. So very grateful for that.
Last one for you, Greg. Looking ahead to tomorrow and Montreal, what are you kind of looking for in this game to learn a little bit more about Atlanta United?
I think just solidifying the win streak again. I think it'd be great for them to just get a win and have 2 wins in a row, to where you can just build from that, right? It's difficult to have that in the league, but I would say the most difficult thing within MLS for me is playing away games. It's every team that you watch. You look at New England Revolution, even in the Champions League, right? Being 3-0 up and then going and playing away, and it's not won, right? I think every single away game within the MLS, I do not know what it is. It is so different than any other league I have ever played in. But away games within the MLS are almost an automatic loss. I don't know what the mentality is within the teams, but it's always an automatic loss, and you rarely see away ties. You rarely see away wins. But I think that's now our opportunity to be home 2 times in a row and understand, okay, this has to be a huge win for us to continue to build off what we truly want this season.
Greg, man, thanks for the time as always. Everything going well at Beyond Goals?
Everything's great. Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. We love what we're doing.
I see you've been very busy lately, jumping around, talking to every team possible, it seems like.
It is a good thing to be busy, that's for sure. Yes. I mean, we love what we do. We love spreading the word and just helping these young individuals flourish. And I think at the end of the day, right, we use soccer as that passion, as that desire that we all have. But at the end of the day, we're I guess, raising these individuals to flourish in whatever they do choose to do in life. So that's the beauty behind it.
Awesome. Great stuff as always, Greg. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
You good, Greg?
Make sure you are following beyondgoalsmentoring.org on your browsers. Make sure you're following BG Mentoring on Twitter. Make sure you're following Beyond Goals Mentoring on Instagram. Greg's on Instagram, GM Garza on Instagram as well. Make sure you're following all of their adventures. I believe we'll have Parky next week. They trade it off. Sometimes they call substitutions, and we get it mixed up, and we'll have them back together again here very soon. Next week, a lot of national team stuff, with it being on Friday after US-Mexico. Yeah, that will be very, very interesting. All right, John, you ready to tell everybody about our good friends over at Eliminize?
I am. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. For odor-free, clean, fresh air. One place you need to go. It's Eliminize service. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent those homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue. It's different than our favorite masking agents that we have under the sink, because those masking agents, all they do is mask the odor. They don't attack the problem. Eliminize does exactly that with a proven scientific formula that destroys odors down to the molecule. It makes pricing easy for you one of two ways, either by cubic foot or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any other questions that may not have been addressed by this read, frequently asked or otherwise, you can go to their website, eliminize.com, but do us a favor. Add /Atlanta after the .com so they know what part of the world you're reaching out to them from. So it is ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, eliminize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Thank you, Eliminize. We'll be seeing you out on the road again very soon. We'll be on the road tonight for a high school game, John, correct?
That is correct. It is a doubleheader involving one school that has both of their teams ranked number one in the country in their respective.
Well, alrighty then.
Yeah, Harrison is ranked number one according to Max Preps on both the boys and the girls' side. And it is a rivalry with Walton. Last time the two teams met on both the boys and the girls' sides, very tight games, probably the tightest games that Harrison has played all season. We will have those at 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock on the SDH app and soccerdownhere.net.
Yeah, looking forward to these. These are big games. The games are starting to ramp up. We're getting more and more programs who want us to come out and do their games, which is awesome. Maybe we can parlay that into some sponsorships for next year and have a much bigger game of the week or games of the week kind of a platform if we can find the funding to make it happen. But it's been a lot of fun to get out and do these high school games. We got more coming for you the rest of the season as we go. But two big ones tonight. The app is a free download if you don't already have it in your app stores. And you can also listen, just go to soccerdownhere.net on your phone or on your laptop, wherever you are, and you can listen to it that way as well. And if you don't get a chance to listen to it live, you can always go back and listen if you so choose as a podcast. So, efforting Mike Conti, we'll try to get him on to talk a little more Atlanta, Montreal. But, Montreal, John, is a team that I think is well coached. I think they're a little bit of a hard team to predict what their 11 will be. It's even harder right now because of CCL and everything they put into that game. You got a lot of guys who have, if not started 7 games so far this year in CCL and MLS, have played in 7, have played a lot of minutes. I don't know what they're going to have in the tank, but they also know that they get 2 weeks off after this before they play again. So can they dial it up one more time? That's a really tricky balance for Wilfried Nancy as he picks a lineup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this looks, considering that it was first choice in the match in the midweek. Do you ask these guys to sit there? It's like, okay, I need whatever I can get out of you. And you start your first choice 11 and then sit there and go, guys, if you can give me 45, let me know. If you can give me 60, let me know. If you think you've got 90 in you, that's fantastic. But no, I think that this is going to be a test of the endurance and the conditioning of all of these guys coming out of that midweek, having to turn around, come down to Atlanta, know the environment that you're getting into. And this is going to be one of those tough exams. We talked about Scantrons in the first hour. This is going to be one of the tougher exams, I think, for Montreal here early in the season, knowing all of the stuff leading into it from a player perspective and what they may or may not have left in them physically coming into this match.
But I don't think, and you call it an exam, and that's valid. I think every game's a test, but it's not a final. And maybe early on at times we get a little too hung up on results in the first couple of weeks. It's a process. It's tough to go on the road in this league, as Greg pointed out. It's tough to balance CONCACAF Champions League if you're one of those teams that earned it from the previous season. It's tough when you're dealing with injuries. It's tough when you're dealing with a new coach implementing a system, as some teams have. There's so many different elements that come into it early. It's a test, and it's an opportunity for Montreal to kind of finish the first phase of the season, because CCL and playing 8 games in the amount of time that they will, just a little over a month, that's definitely a phase in and of itself. And you get to complete that in this game in Atlanta. You want to go out on a high. It's going to be tough for them to do that, because you look at who's played a lot of minutes. A lot of their key guys have got a lot of miles on their tires already. And what are they going to be able to give you here? You also have the emotional letdown of going out after you were in it against Cruz Azul the whole way. You had an opportunity to go through. You nearly gave yourself 1 goal away late with Romel Kyoto, with a huge opportunity late in that game against Cruz Azul. You would have still needed 1 more because of the away goal, but you had a little bit of time to do it. You got really close. And does that spur you on to avenge it in Atlanta? Does it bring you down and make it difficult for you to get up for this? An afternoon game, a late afternoon game, sometimes those can be tricky for road teams. I feel like that might be something for the MLS experts to nail down. Is away games difficult in and of themselves? Are they more difficult if they're earlier in the day? I feel like they are.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. I've just always felt like that's a tougher game in general. I think it throws you out of your rhythm a little bit. You get so used to playing in the evening and all of that. When you have that early kick, it's tough in general. It's tougher on the road team,
because everything that you're used to in that ritual of playing the night game, it's like, all right, I get up at this time, I have breakfast, here's my meal, here's what I do through my day. I'd leave my house, leave my condo, leave my apartment at this time. Everything is regimented toward that night game. And then all of that just kind of gets thrown into a jumble. And it's like, okay, that means I've got to be up X number of hours earlier if I'm going to continue my routine. That routine does kind of get broken up a lot, really, the earlier it goes. I mean, those 1 o'clock kicks that we see, those can really turn into some difficult watches, and it takes a long time for players to get really oriented into playing those early ones. And while a 4 isn't as bad as a 1, it's still not a 7 or a 7:30 in your local time. And so, yeah, I can definitely see how that messes up the circadian rhythms that we talk about.
So we'll kind of run through Montreal a little bit and give you a glimpse, because I think it's a little sad that this team isn't as respected as maybe they should be. Now, the start to the season, not where it needs to be, although they did get to the quarterfinals of CCL. But this is a tricky one with kind of how many different players they've had to use at times. They do still have a lot of injuries as well. It's why they added Kai Kamara when they did. They had a bunch of injuries up top. But just to get to know some of these guys a little bit, Sebastian Brezza has been the unmitigated number one in goal. Came over from Bologna on loan. He's been a Canadian youth international. I thought James Pantemis did well for them last year, but Brezza came in late, took the job, and has kept it. He started every game for them. I mentioned with Greg how they're kind of flexible in the way that they position themselves. It's generally out of some form of a 3-5-2, 5-3-2. Sometimes it can look a little more 3-4-3, 5-4-1, depending on personnel, depending on situation. But they really get creative with what the wing backs look like. Sometimes it can look like a true line of five with fullbacks as wing backs with three center backs. Sometimes it can look very attack-minded with wingers as wing backs, with fullbacks as center backs, and it kind of shape shifts a little bit. On the wing back side of things or fullback side of things, you've got a lot of different options. Zoran Basong, young Canadian, spent some time in Belgium and in France. He's played 4 games. He started a couple on the left side. Alistair Johnston has played in 6 games. He started 5 of them. He's played as a center back and as a wing back, depending on the situation. We saw it with Nashville where he would play, and he does it for Canada, where he plays as the right-sided center back in a 3, but will get forward like a fullback would, and everything kind of shifts over to the side as he plays a little bit more of a fullback, even though he's a center back. When he recovers to defend, they defend with 3 center backs again. It's a really interesting tactical move, and it created a goal against Atlanta. It created a goal very clearly because Atlanta lost the movement, lost the rotations with it. Johnston's movement created a lot of that. They have another player that I really like, Zachary Broguillard, 23 years old, was born in Haiti, spent some time with Lyon. 6 games so far this season, but mostly off the bench. A little bit more of a traditional fullback. So when he plays as a wingback, more defensive. Basong, more defensive. Johnston can give you a little bit of that mix. But Nancy's also really comfortable playing guys like Mathieu Chouanier as a wingback. He's a winger, and he was good last year in a wingback role. 4 games so far on the season. He's got an assist. When he plays as a wingback, much more attack-minded. He's playing it like a winger. Defensively, a little bit of a liability at times, but he's dangerous when he gets forward. You can catch him defensively. Lassi Lapalainen, another winger that plays wing back, the Finnish international. Very fast, improving defensively, but when he's a wing back, he's going to bomb forward. And he's got the speed to recover, maybe not the defensive ability to be great defensively, but he's got that speed to constantly recover on you and just make life difficult. He's played in all 7 games. He started 6 of them. Up top, Romel Kyoto has been the primary guy with 5 starts. Joaquin Torres can play as well as a forward / winger / like kind of tucked in underneath, second forward. He's been very good. Joaquin Torres is one of the more underrated players in the league, in my opinion. Came over from Newell's Old Boys. Mason Toy's still hurt. Bjorn Janssen hasn't played. Sanusi Ibrahim has been hurt. Kai Kamara comes in. He's played in 6 of the games. He started 2. Hasn't gotten a goal yet, but he's had some opportunities. He's 37. You know, how much can he give you? But as a veteran coming off the bench, he can be dangerous. Set pieces, he can be absolutely dangerous. We know Jordi Mihailovic, one of the best players in the league, period. Could have been part of this U.S. men's national team, probably should have been. He started 6 of the 7 games. He's played in all 7. He's got a goal and 2 assists in all competitions. He's created a ton of chances, almost 3 per game in all competitions. He's got 4 assists lifetime against Atlanta in 6 games as well coming into the season. Really dangerous player. And with that shape that we've talked about, Mihailovic can play so many different roles. He can play as a second forward. He can play as one of the wingers in a 3-4-3 that tucks in. He can play as a false nine. He can play a little bit more of a holding role if you're going to be really attack-minded. He is the one that I think what Wilfried Nancy does with him, John, is he can move him around to find space for him. He can interchange with guys, and he's such a difficult player to deal with because he can play so many different roles in so many parts of the field.
Do you think coming in that Montreal plays things a little more defensively, leaning toward that 5 at the back just to get into the rhythm of the game, considering that they played in the midweek?
I wouldn't put it that way. I think more than anything, they might go that way because of freshness, because Broguillard and Bassong haven't played quite as much this season. They can get forward. It's not really defensive purely if they're there. They're better defenders than Lapalainen or Chouanier, but they just haven't played as much. I just think they're fresh. So you might go with them because they've got more in the tank. That's what I could see. Mihailovic is the question because he's played so much. Does he have to come off the bench here? You know, he started 6 of 7. He's played in all 7. I think the one that he didn't start, he played 45. Do you only play him 45 here? That's what they did last week in New York City, if I remember correctly. So maybe that's what you do to where you're finding not so much the idea of coming in and being defensive on the road. It's more about the last part of your question. You've played so many minutes. You played in the midweek. You're not going defensive. You're going fresh. So who has got more to give in this one? Central midfield, you got to look at Victor Wanyama as well. He started all 7 games. He's played a ton of minutes. He's 30. Can he give you another start and give you 90? Maybe. He looked tired, in my opinion, against Cruz Azul. Do you rest him? Piet has been dealing with an injury. He hasn't played this season. Hamdi hasn't played this season. Another player I really like. They've played an 18-year-old in 5 games, 2 starts, Rita Zohir, who is out of the academy, joined the academy in 16, signed a homegrown deal in 20 at the end of the season. He's probably going to play. Matko Miljevic is probably going to play, a young American youth international, Argentine and U.S. citizen. Parents are Argentine and Croatian, born in Miami. I'd been with Argentinos Juniors, a really good pickup from Montreal when his contract ran out. He's another kind of Mihailovic guy where he can play a little bit of everywhere. I think he's going to get minutes. Ismail Kone, an Ivory Coast young midfielder who came out of the academy in Montreal. He's played 6 games. He started 2. He's probably going to play as a holding midfielder. You're going to be looking at guys who can allow them to play the way they want, but also guys who are fresh. Gabriele Corbo, a young center back from Naples originally, came over on loan from Bologna. He's only started 3 games. He could play. You might give Johnston time off. Johnston's about to go to the Canadian national team. Maybe give him a little bit of time off. We haven't seen Karifa Yao. Robert Torkelson, teenager from Reykjavik. He's played in 3 games. He started 1. Very good chance he plays. Waterman's started 5 games. Really solid center back for them. Kamal Miller's started 6 of 7. He's played in all 7. Another one who maybe doesn't have 90 in him. I think when you go through all of that and you start to look at it, you're like, Bassong's got minutes in him. Broguillard's got minutes in him. Maybe Johnston needs to rest. Maybe Miller needs to rest. Torkelson probably going to play here. Camacho, another player's got a goal for them. He's got 4 starts out of 7. Maybe he starts in place of Miller, for example. Mihailovic is what makes them go. I don't know if he's got 90. So do they use him for the first 45 or the second? Probably the second. Can Miljevic give you some of what Mihailovic does if he's not on the field? They're going to need him to. Where they've really struggled has been production in the final third. Sounds like a recurring theme around the league at times. They've produced chances. Mihailovic has been great in that. Other players have as well. But they haven't been finishing. They're missing guys. Kai Kamara hasn't finished yet. Kyoto, very streaky guy, very dangerous guy, but very streaky. Torres doesn't have a goal yet. You're not getting the goals, but they've been a pretty good team in the way they've played. I just keep looking at all those minutes, 4 more games under their belt, and it will affect lineup selection. It will affect the way they play. It will affect their tactics by default because of who's available. It's going to be tricky for Montreal. But as Greg pointed out, and look, like a team's never going to say this publicly. They can't. You're not going to say, like, yes, we are excited to play this team that's going to come in tired and maybe beat up and maybe sad because they got knocked out of CCL. You're going to think that in the locker room. You're going to look at, all right, you go through that list we just went through in that lineup and who they could play and what it could look like. We can attack that guy. We can be a little more aggressive here if Mihailovic doesn't play. You start to look for where the weaknesses are. That's what every team does. You look at, what do we do well? What does the other team not do well? What can we exploit? And with Montreal, with these changes that I'm expecting because of the amount of games they've played, you're going to have some opportunities to exploit things about them if you're Atlanta United.
I know that we've been really high on Wilfried Nancy as a head coach, and I know that you mentioned the lack of respect for what CF Montreal has done. I would think, and this is just a very surface thought and reason on why, at least from me looking at it, it's because of where they are. I know that a lot of folks who follow the league on the whole, I would anticipate have a lot of respect for Wilfried Nancy and what he's been building there in Montreal. But if you don't follow the league, and I mean that in the capital L league sense across the board, and Montreal just kind of pops up on your screen, you may not know a whole lot about them. I would think because of where they are, where they're tucked away, and the lack of media coverage here in the States, that's why I think that they're not getting the respect that they deserve on a couple of fronts.
Yeah, it's part of it. They don't have any of those players that grab your attention that they've had in the past, like a Didier Drogba. You don't have any of those guys in this team right now. Kai Kamara got them some attention, but that's very different. When you had Drogba, they were treated like a big deal. Nacho Piatti turned into a big deal league-wide. I think if you followed the game out of South America, you knew Nacho Piatti and what he brought to the table. He was one of my favorite players ever in this league. The results have to be there too, and that's kind of the next step. Last year, I felt like Wilfried Nancy should have been talked about as a Coach of the Year candidate. Took over the team in March when Thierry Henry left, went back to Europe. Unexpectedly, Nancy had been with the academy for a long time, since the club started in MLS. Had been with the academy, became a first-team assistant a while back in 2016, I believe. Gets the opportunity. It's handed to him. Kept them in playoff contention with a team that probably on paper wasn't a playoff team. If they'd made the playoffs, he absolutely should have been Coach of the Year, in my opinion. But he really wasn't talked about like that. I mean, from anybody. So he should be talked about more. Montreal should be a team that can achieve more too. And again, that's the next step. We can say, there is a good coach. They've got a good roster. They've got some good talent. We can say all that, but they haven't been a team that has been deep in the playoffs often at all. They've been a team that at times has been bad. That's why they don't get as much respect. I mean, it's hard to argue that. I think Nancy's a good coach, but it's hard to argue that they should be treated as a bigger deal because you look at the records. Last time they were in an Eastern Conference final was 2016. I think that was the only time they've been in an Eastern Conference final with Toronto. I believe that was an Eastern Conference final. It might have been a semifinal. That was their epic run in terms of MLS playoff play. They've had epic runs in CONCACAF, and that's good. But we've had this conversation, all the time about how CONCACAF's treated versus everything else. Sometimes, those runs aren't looked at as big of a deal. They've got to do more in the league, and they're probably going to have to invest more. And we've heard the conversations out of Saputo and out of Montreal about what they can do. And they've wanted to expand the stadium. There's all kinds of legal, political fights with the government in Quebec and the government in Montreal about doing that. They haven't been able to. That's probably limited his investment a little bit. I feel like he's tried to find some ways around it to still be competitive. They have invested in their academy. They've started to produce a lot of players out of the Quebec region. They've done a good job with that. He's exploited his ownership of Bologna as well, brought players over on loan, sometimes moved them over on a permanent, like Lassi Lapalainen. Brezza's on loan from Bologna. Others have been in that situation, but it hasn't been enough. And ultimately, for, I think, a team in a city like Montreal, they have to be a winner to get the attention, even locally. Nationally, and in this country as well, they have to be a winner to get the respect that they probably have deserved more of. But they got to win to get the ultimate respect. They just have to, and they haven't done it enough since coming into the league. And you're going to have to start figuring out, like, all right, can Saputo invest more? Does he need to bring on investors to do that? Do they need to figure out how to push through expanding the stadium to bring in more money, those kinds of things? I love that stadium. It's a small little stadium. It's quaint. It's really nice. I love it. It's one of my favorite places in the league. But it's probably not a huge revenue generator for them.
Yeah.
Because it's just not very big. It's not very fancy. It doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles that bring in the money. So when you're not bringing in that kind of money, how often can you go get a Didier Drogba? It's tough. They do have an advantage, though, with being in a French-speaking city. That's going to help them with some players that they could potentially bring in that might be more attracted to go there than other places in the league. That's something that I don't think at times they've exploited enough. So Montreal's a fascinating team in this league. I want them to be bigger and better than they have been, but they haven't achieved enough for that to probably be a realistic expectation.
Because it is a hockey town. I mean, it is Montreal Canadiens, and then it's everybody else.
Yeah, but John, I don't care. Sorry, Charlotte's a NASCAR town. They drew 74,000. It was one time, I know. They got to continually do it. Atlanta's a football town. I think they've done okay.
Mm-hmm. They have.
I disagree with that mentality that they're a hockey town and nothing else matters. No, if the Impact are good, the former Impact at CF Montreal, if they are good, they'll draw and they'll be fine. But if you're not good, you're not going to draw. The Canadiens, like, when they're not good, the attendance goes down, right?
Yes, it does.
Just like with the Red Sox, just like with the Cubs, just like with any, heritage club anywhere in this hemisphere. Winning cures all. Is it harder in some places because of other competition? Yes. I don't want to completely dismiss it. But the fact, like, I don't want people to think that you can't be a big deal because it's a hockey town. That's not true. Toronto's a hockey town. When Toronto FC was at their best, I think BMO was pretty packed and pretty wild. Right?
Yeah. From a media perspective, though, whether you're good or bad in Montreal or Toronto, specifically from a hockey perspective, that's going to be their number one coverage point. It's like,
so they should probably move those teams, right?
Yeah.
Just move them. Just get rid of them. Just close them up, close up shop.
Yeah.
Because, it's hockey. Nah, come on, man. Come on. You might get more column inches for the Canadiens or the Maple Leafs. Good for them. That's wonderful. Good. The Raptors got plenty when they won the NBA title.
They did.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
they did.
Toronto got plenty when they won MLS and did their treble and had that year that was hugely successful in their run into CONCACAF and all of that. You've got to fight harder. But if we keep bringing that up, I get defensive about it. I'm sorry. I'm not taking this out on you, but when we bring this up of there's this team, there's this is a challenge, it comes off so often as, well, that's an excuse for why the soccer team didn't draw this or why the soccer team didn't bring this in, or it's an excuse for why soccer isn't successful. I don't think we're in the 80s or the 90s anymore. You don't have to have the column inches in the local newspaper to be successful anymore. You don't have to have the local TV rating to be successful anymore. You can go around it. And there are plenty of people who are growing up who are not the diehard Canadiens fans that the last generation was. And they might be diehard CF Montreal fans. Or they might be diehard soccer fans who are wanting to be CF Montreal fans and waiting for a winner. There's no reason why soccer can't be successful in any market in this hemisphere, period. Full stop. Are there things that make it harder? Yes. But I will always push back on the idea that, well, you can't get the same media coverage. You're not going to get the same coverage. So, the hockey, college football, NASCAR, baseball, basketball. Give up. Nope. You got to find your way, and you got to put a winner on the field. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Is we can do all these great things. You can have all the marketing gimmicks. You can create all the buzz. You can do everything like that. If you're not winning, people aren't going to keep coming.
No.
Period. And Montreal hasn't won enough.
No, my whole perspective on it is find your voice and find your way, and there are ways to do that. But
ultimately win.
Yes,
like I can't underline that hard enough, because you can find your voice, you can find your way into the local sports community. That doesn't last if you don't win.
Correct.
It doesn't last for a heritage team if you don't win, because at some point people are going to put paper bags over their head. And they're not going to want to be there. And they might still come for a little bit because, haha, it's funny. Look at me. I'm being clever. And then they're not going to show up because there's something better to do with their time. The Cubs, for all the greatness of the Chicago Cubs franchise, you go back and watch games from the 80s, that place is empty.
Yeah, it is.
Because they were garbage. The Red Sox, empty for long portions of being garbage. When you're a bad team, no matter if you got heritage, no matter if you don't have heritage, whatever, you're not going to draw. No matter if you got great marketing, you're not going to draw. If you're a good team, you're going to draw to a degree. You got to do all the things you're talking about to draw well, even if you're winning. But if you're not winning, none of that stuff matters ultimately. It just doesn't. Philadelphia is turning because they've been winning.
Yes.
You got to win. You got to put a winner on the field. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you to keep recycling gimmicks to get people to come out for that. You want to come out to watch a winner.
Now, Burns, when he was discussing Canadian soccer from a Canada perspective, soccer is actually quite big in Canada. Lots of international people, lots of legacy fans, Italy, Scotland, etc. Wants to know if we've seen their TV ratings. They put U.S. soccer ratings to shame. No question internally in the country, Burned. Yes, that is the case. But I specifically what I was talking about was literally from a Major League Soccer perspective and looking at Montreal from everyone else. You have to be following everyone in the league, capital L, to know what Wilfried Nancy is doing. That's disappointing, but considering that I think that Nancy, and we've said this on the show, that Nancy should be getting more respect and CF Montreal should be getting more respect as a franchise for what they've been doing recently. It's just that from the perspective of the league, they're not getting a whole lot of coverage.
But they got to win. He's done a good job. He's not going to get that respect enough if he's not winning. And I think he's done a good job. And I think he last year he should have got more respect along the way. But ultimately, they didn't make the playoffs, so probably everybody else was right. This year, they haven't won a league game yet. Probably everybody else is right. I think Nancy's a good coach. Can he win? Can they win? If they do, they're going to get more attention. And when they have gotten that attention. They haven't in a while. They got to get back to that. And that's what it is for every team in the league. But the game has grown to a point that it can be successful. I mean, Bernie, I agree with you. Canadian, I haven't followed all the TV rating stuff because I think at times it gets overplayed. But Canadian TV ratings are good. There's a lot of attention. This is an exciting team. It's the best Canada's ever had by far. It's not even close. All that said, there's plenty of interest in the U.S. as well, even if the TV ratings are whatever they are. There's plenty of soccer interest here. So it's not like there's more interest in Canada than the U.S. There's interest in both. It's a good thing all the way around the board. I think right now Canada is in a place with their national team that they have honestly never been. The run to 86 was a little bit of a surprise. You didn't have Mexico in that qualification process. The U.S. went out early because they were stupid and played a game in California in a predominantly Costa Rican area in a game that mattered. He had to beat Costa Rica, and he made it a home game for them. Good job, U.S. Soccer Federation, 1985. They also probably needed the money because they were pretty much broke. So, lots of things. But Canada got through that time with like a bunch of semi-pros, and I think an amateur scored one of the most essential goals in Canadian soccer history to get them to that World Cup. It was 86. Not quite as big of a deal for as long a period of time. This is a legit top team in Canada and probably the best team in CONCACAF at the moment. Now, ultimately, they're going to have to do the same thing, right? They're going to have to win. They're going to have to win the Gold Cup. They're going to have to start winning trophies. They're going to have to start competing on a regular basis with Mexico and the U.S. They've got all the players to do it. We'll see if they can, because if they don't, the ratings are going to dip. Everything's going to dip. We'll see where this goes. Montreal's an interesting opponent this weekend because of where they are. They're an interesting opponent this weekend because of how flexible they can be tactically. They have a good manager. It's also interesting because their lineup is not going to be an easy one to predict because of all of the minutes these guys have played so far this season. You know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I'm just letting it play out. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I figured. Jarrett has lumbered into the show again. You ready for this?
Or is he lurking?
No, I'm here. I'm enjoying my moment.
Okay, it's done. Hi.
Wow.
It's done. I can stop the music and end the moment really fast, Jarrett. You ready?
I think you already have. I think you already killed this moment off.
I did. I 100% did. Yes. You were enjoying it too much. I had to take that away from you.
Well, Mommy never to put you in charge of intro music for wrestling.
No, it'd be pretty good actually. I think I do a good job with that. Sometimes
what happens when someone starts enjoying their music and taking forever?
It depends. No, it depends. If they're a heel, then of course you're going to cut it really fast.
Cut my music.
No, that has nothing to do with it, John. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to the games.
Let's just get to logic. Let's just get to games and why you shouldn't bet on MLS. Let's just go.
Yes. Go. I think everybody last week got 5 or 6 of the games right. It was our best week so far. There were different games that people got. Nobody got any of the upsets all the way across the board. Jarrett, you and I both got Chicago at DC. You were the only one who got RSL because you were high and you shared it with the team. There was one other upset that one person.
I can't even enjoy that anymore because I'm still so angry at whatever the hell was going on with New England this week. Like, what the hell happened to you people?
It's fair enough. You broke them. You broke them by picking RSL. RSL wins that, and they're broken now. And they got to go to Charlotte. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's not the first game of the week. First game of the week is New York City hosting Philadelphia, Yankee Stadium. NYC, midweek CONCACAF Champions League, favored -149, draw +300, Philly +400. Philly has not lost this season, 2 wins and a draw. NYC, 1 of each, a win, a draw, and a loss on 4. They've also played 4 more games in CONCACAF. What are your thoughts on this one, Jarrett?
Oh, I mean, I'm very much in the NYC camp, so that has to be factored into my opinion on this. I think I like what NYC is doing. I think they will continue to be a problem for a lot of people. So I'm kind of with them right now. I'm kind of like, I need to see them like trip and fall again before I'm disillusioned because I'm in love.
All righty then. John, what you got?
I think that the midweek took a lot out of them with the craziness that happened. And with Philadelphia being Philadelphia, I think that I'm going to go with Philadelphia here. I think that Philadelphia gets a win on the road.
Last year when they played in NYC, and I don't remember if it was at Red Bull Arena or Yankee Stadium because they alternated. Last year in the home game for the Pigeons, it was a 1-1 draw. We know what happened in the postseason in Philadelphia, where Philadelphia was recruiting players from the concession staff. Philadelphia won their home game last year in regular season. In the all-time matchup between Ronnie Dyla and Jim Curtin, 2 wins apiece, 1 draw. I think it's going to be 2-2-2. I'm going with a draw here in this one. All right, Cincinnati, Miami. Cincinnati, resurgent Cincinnati. Miami is not resurged from anything yet. Cincinnati is favored at home plus 110, draw plus 250, Miami plus 240 on the road. Cincy's got 3 points on the season. Miami's got 1 from week 1. What you got here, John?
I think that Cincinnati gets it done. I think
they're at home, they're favored. That's not going out on a limb.
Yeah, and because as a part and parcel to that, will lead to the discussion after the matches. I have one of their players playing up top for me this week in fantasy.
Fantasy has nothing to do with picking games, John.
No, but I think that Cincinnati should be able to exploit what we have seen so far.
You picked Brandon Vasquez on your fantasy team, didn't you?
That is correct.
Boy. Jarrett, what you got?
Cincinnati. Miami is until they stop the Breck Shea center back experiment, I'm going to keep hitting them in the nose with a newspaper, metaphorically speaking, because
I don't think they did last week.
Thank God. I mean, it was bad.
It was bad 2 weeks ago. It was. Breck Shea played as a left back last week.
That's better.
Yes, that's fine.
And Miami needs to figure themselves out. Cincinnati seems to be feeling good about themselves. I know you are. I don't want to accuse you of being a believer of Cincinnati and put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I couldn't. I would have to disagree with that sentiment.
But I know you were also of the mindset that they are better than what their record betrayed how well they were playing early in the season.
That is true. Yes.
So I think Cincinnati can keep it going. It's at home. It's Miami. Miami's kind of a kick dog right now, so.
But what do they say about the kicked dog sometimes?
Sometimes it bites.
Sometimes it's a holler. Well, isn't that the statement? Isn't that the old phrase? You're usually good with the Southern colloquialisms, Jarrett.
Yeah. In this instance, like I don't think it's gonna holler.
You're not thinking any hollering or biting.
No, I'm believing in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I do too. I'm not all the way sold. Miami's had really good success against Cincinnati, and neither one's been actually all that good. Miami's been better in the past than I guess they are now. Cincinnati was worse, so that probably skews into it. Last 3 times they played all last season, 3 wins for Miami, 2 of them in Cincinnati, 3-2 win and a 1-0 win. 5-1 Miami against Cincinnati in October last year in Fort Lauderdale. I just don't think Miami's there right now. I think this will actually be a pretty good game. I do. I know that's maybe heresy to say.
It could be a fun game. I mean,
it could. I really want to go draw here, but I just haven't seen enough out of Miami to feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't really trust Cincinnati yet either.
That sounds like a draw.
Everything's pointing to Cincinnati to win, but I am going to go draw here. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about anything with that game. I do think it could be interesting and fun, and you might feel better afterwards. I don't feel good going into it. Anyway, 3:00, Toronto and DC. It's early in the season. I'm still getting to figure these teams out. Toronto hosting DC at BMO Field. Toronto is a favorite plus 125. Draw 275. DC 190. Very even in the all-time head-to-head here between these two teams. 7 wins for Toronto, 6 for DC, 7 draws. These two teams are pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, pretty bad. Worse than Cincinnati and Miami, in my opinion. I don't even think the over, as John has tried to pull every time we bring up Toronto all season long, I don't even think that plays into it because I don't think DC is very good going to goal. And I don't think Toronto is very good anyway. They did remove Kamar Lawrence from their roster because that was lingering on for a month. Jarrett, what's going to happen in this game? Please give me some clarity.
Man, I think DC is going to win because Toronto can't defend, and they just had problems with a team that likes to get in your face and press and turn you over. And not saying that DC is the same team as Red Bulls, but
Yeah, it's different.
it's
Maybe.
different, but they still want to get after you. They want the ball, and they want it up the field.
I think they're attacking you as well, Jarrett.
They are.
They are. I mean, but like, if you have the ball, they take that as a personal offense.
They do. That's true. I thought there might have been an injury with DC. DC is working on a few things. They have reached a deal to bring Taxiartes Funtas to the MLS club before the summer window. He's on a flight as of yesterday, so hopefully he's landed. Physical and visa wait, so he's got to come, do all that, then he's got to go back. The visa will take about 3 weeks. He's not going to help in straight away. $400,000 transfer fee. Okay. They're also trying to reacquire Chris Durkin, homegrown player who they sold to Belgium, who now they might pay, I would guess, maybe more to bring back, or maybe he comes back on a loan. I don't know. They've done this before. I just shake my head sometimes. I don't want to go 3 draws straight out of the gate, but these teams are bad.
Yeah.
They're bad. What are you picking, John?
I'm picking a draw because both teams aren't very good, and the weather is supposed to say. Well, but I also I went looking at weather, and it's supposed to be a high of 50 with an 86% chance of rain. So rain on that surface with 2 bad teams. I don't even think a goal is going to get scored. It's going to be the most unappealing match of the weekend. So draw. I
feel like it's a draw. Now you're thinking maybe sloppiness.
Yeah.
There's such a thing as drunken fun, I guess. So.
Yeah, no, it could be. It could be really like the conditions could actually help this game be better, because it might be dumb as opposed to bad.
Yeah.
Dumb can be fun sometimes. Bad's just bad. I'm going to go with, in a game where the conditions are a problem, it comes down to who's the individual who can win the game for you. I think it's Alejandro Pozuelo. I'll go Toronto.
Okay.
And they're at home, and both teams are bad. LA Galaxy hosting Orlando, cross-conference battle here. Galaxy minus 137, draw 280, Orlando plus 375. I'm taking the Galaxy. Orlando might have showed themselves a bit last week. Jarrett, what you got?
Give me the draw.
Wow.
I think Orlando, because I think Orlando, I think Orlando will show they've got a pair. The Galaxy will be very good, but Orlando will actually put up a bit of a fight here and get a surprising draw.
How many times in Orlando's history have they shown that?
I was going to say, put up a pair of what?
A pair of lost points. There you go, John.
Be careful.
You set me up and I'll knock you down. Pair of lost points. Oh, please. Safe harbor doesn't apply.
You could have gotten way past safe harbor in that one if you'd taken it different places. I'm glad
I chose not to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I am going out on a limb with the idea that Orlando shows up and plays a good game, and they very well will not. But if I got to pick, if I'm going to be accused of being high every week and picking a game that's got a high result, so I guess this will be mine of the week.
It might. There's a lot more games to pick. This might not be your highest pick, but we'll see what happens. That's a little high. Little high. John, what you picking?
Galaxy. I think that in addition to everything else that we talked about setting up this match, and we talked about early starts, and Orlando is playing a 12:30 local time start, having to travel from one end of the country to the other. So I'll go Galaxy.
Yeah, I think the Galaxy get a comfortable win here. Chicago and Sporting Kansas City, 6:00. Chicago minus 110, draw 275. Kansas City plus 280. 3 points on the year for Kansas City. Unbeaten and unscored upon Chicago, 2 draws out of the 3, but 5 points. Slonina is, I believe, somewhere between questionable and probable, That's why he wasn't called up to the U.S. men's national team, according to reports, but he is expected to play in this one. So Chicago, Kansas City. John, what you got?
Let's see. Chicago's defense has been pretty stout so far this season to date. Sporting, tell you what, I will operate under the assumption that Slonina will start. I will go with Chicago's defense, holding off Sporting's offense. I'll go Chicago at home.
Jarrett, what you got?
Give me Sporting Kansas City. I think
I'm
we're
not going to ask you, but I want to.
3 games in, Chicago hasn't given up a goal. They've struggled to score as well. And Sporting Kansas City has thrown away chances. Go back to that Colorado game. Sporting Kansas City did similar to Atlanta United in that they had chances against Colorado, and they didn't convert them. I think they're going to get and convert some of those chances in this one.
Okay. I'm not buying it yet.
That's fine.
I would have coming into the season. I got some concerns about Kansas City right now. I really do.
And that's completely fair.
They need to be going to get Jossie's artist. That's the number one thing I think they need to do is go get Jossie's artist, get a true number 9. I think the concerns then go away. We'll see where that goes. Joining in for the ridiculousness of the MLS schedule, it's Mike Conti. What's up?
Guys, apologies. I'm so sorry that I'm...
did everything get sorted out? I saw there was issues with the remote broadcast.
Yeah, kind of. So...
Are they using a bullhorn?
No, yeah, they almost had to. No, fortunately, we had to bring them back into the studio.
Wow.
I could get into really super technical, lengthy explanation as to why I'm 45 minutes late joining you today.
Radio down here.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But I am so sorry.
No.
It's just, of course, it happens right at 10 a.m. Can't happen at 2 p.m. So I'm really sorry about that.
No, you joined in for the fun stuff. We talked Atlanta, Montreal. We went through Montreal's team. There's a lot of questions about what their lineup looks like. We're going through the rest of the MLS schedule and giving you some picks. I have 1.5 times thought Jarrett might be high with some of his picks for the weekend so far. But his one last week that I literally asked him, "Are you high?" He got it right with RSL going to New England and winning. So maybe that's a secret.
Good pick. New England suddenly looks like something's gone horribly wrong with them.
And that brings us to our next game. Perfect segue, Mike, as Charlotte hosts New England.
No shot.
Well, Charlotte's a plus 230. The draw is plus 275. New England is favored at 105. I do have some real questions about this game.
I do too.
Really do.
And now, if you look at the way these teams are trending, Charlotte clearly with the needle pointing up. New England clearly with the needle pointing way down, almost straight down. But the talent gap.
It is. But how much of New England's talent is on the field, though, after playing midweek?
Excellent question, too.
Bo got tagged and had to leave early.
Yeah, but even New England's second choice. Here's the thing. Like, Cleveland could keep Charlotte in the game like he has in the last 2. And that could neutralize some things. I think Charlotte is playing better and will probably play better than they did last week in Atlanta. Is that enough, though, to overcome that gap? You know what? A draw.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah,
will not surprise me at all, and Charlotte gets the first result in club history.
That's where I'm at.
That's a really good point for them if they get one out of Foxborough.
No, they're at home.
Or at home. Either way, still really good point. Really good point.
I got 1-1. I got 1-1. I think it'll be difficult for Charlotte to create chances, but they'll get something out of it. And I think New England will really struggle. I think the legs will look really heavy, and it'll be a New England goal in the first half, a Charlotte goal in the second half to get a point, and everybody will leave happy. Jarrett, what you got?
You took my score line and then 1-1. I think the legs. I think it's the same thing. The legs will be heavy. We've seen this one now with a couple of teams coming out of CONCACAF Champions League, Montreal and New York City, both looked like they were going to die on the field last week. And those legs will get heavy, especially if you get in a situation in the second half where Charlotte can weather the storm. And it doesn't have to be an identical change to what you did to try and take the game over in Atlanta. But if it can be a close game with 40 minutes left, and MAR can make the changes he wants to make to try and take control of the game, could get a little weird.
I'm almost wondering if you start a little bit how you finished. You got to remember New England plays a diamond too. You're not going to be overplayed on the flanks as much as you were.
You mean a defensive diamond?
No, they shouldn't be defensive in this game, but you shouldn't be defensive with a diamond ever, Bruce Arena. Please don't do that. It doesn't work, especially against teams who can kill you on the flanks. Don't do it. Don't do it. But I think Mackenzie Gaines could be somebody who you bring on in the second half and open the game up against their diamond, because you can create some 2v1s with him and Lindsey on the right side. That's where I think Charlotte could give New England some problems. I'll go 1-1, and New England limps into the international break. John, what you got?
Same thing. Go for it.
Okay.
Next match.
Minnesota hosting San Jose in the Jarrett Smith Special.
Ooh.
The Jarrett Derby. Minnesota's -161.
Why is this my Derby?
I don't know. You're getting the Loons as a bonus along with your Quakes. Your
I
Quakes
don't like the Loons. I can tell you right now, I don't like. I've not been a fan of the Loons.
But
I haven't been a fan of the Loons in 2 years.
There's a lot of derbies that you like one side and you hate the other one. Here you go.
They'll just throw it in the pile.
Sure. There you go. What are you picking? Do you got faith in your Quakes?
No, Pilgrim's right. It's a bird. I should pick it by default because I was explaining last night during the Kentucky loss that if you're ever in a situation where you were fighting a bird, and a peacock is a large bird, you're going to lose that, because at any given point, a giant bird is going to remember that it came from dinosaurs, and it is going to revert to that mentality. So don't fight large birds.
Mike,
but I'm going to pick against.
Hold on, Mike. Am I wrong in saying that peacocks are really mean? I
Oh
thought
yeah,
they were.
no, they're incredibly ornery, aren't they?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, you don't want to be around peacocks.
No, like peacocks, ostriches, and like velociraptors are the three birds that you just don't want to be around, right? And not necessarily in that order.
No,
I don't want to be around a velociraptor, because then something seriously has gone wrong with the world order.
There's that. Yeah, I'll stay away from those for sure if I see one.
Give me the Loons in this one. I'm not happy about it, but give me the Loons in this one because I think their offense will. Their offensive firepower will take care of things. And man, San Jose just like can we just move on in the summer?
Yeah, it's time. It's time. John, what you got?
It's really time.
I'm going to go with Minnesota United by default. I'm not a fan of Adrian Heath. Minnesota United, begrudgingly so.
Yeah, this is one of the games, Mike, that out of all the games after us on Saturday, there's some good ones that I'm going to be committing time to. I probably won't have this up on my quad box.
Oh, I don't know. I think just in terms of overall entertainment, like my buddy Jason Goff, who used to work here at 92.9 The Game, he used to have a term called fun bad, where something would be so bad it was actually fun to watch. Yes. This might actually creep into fun bad. I could see this being a 5-5 draw. So, like, who wouldn't want to watch that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
There are many games this weekend. This is one of them.
Yeah, right. No, and 5-5 is an exaggeration, but I
might
think
not be.
Now, there will be lots of goals in this. I think this feels like 4-2 Minnesota, maybe.
I think Minnesota wins by a couple. I don't know if it gets that high. If San Jose is going to have to play really well for it to be that fun bad, and I don't know if they've got that in them on the road again. I think Minnesota will win like 3-1 is kind of where I'm at. Dallas and Portland in Frisco. Dallas starting to put it together a little bit, a team that I've got some expectations for this year. Portland hasn't lost, 2 draws, 1 win on the season. Dallas is a big favorite at home, -110, draws +275, Portland on the road +280. Can Gio get it done, John?
I'll go with the hot hand of Alan Velasco. I'll say no. I'll go FC Dallas with the win.
I am FC Dallas to win as well, and I think Alan Velasco is going to be a serious problem in this league. Serious problem in this league. Jarrett, what you got?
I think I'm contractually obligated to not pick against Gio.
It's a dangerous move. I'm doing it, but you're draw or win. Then what are you picking?
Give me the draw. Give me a fun draw though. Like really fun draw that gets everyone's tired at the end and it gets end to end and sloppy and fun, and everyone who's not associated with these teams is just begging for it to keep going. Like, no, throw 5 more minutes of stoppage time on there. That's fine.
That's a good point. I don't think this definitely isn't fun bad. This would be fun good, Mike.
Yeah.
I think it could be a really good game.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And, here's the thing about the Timbers. I feel like every time we count them out or think, like, how many times have I said over the last 2 or 3 years, Portland's window, it's closing. It's probably closed by now, right? Yeah. And then what do? They win MLS's back. They very nearly win the Cup last year. So I'm my head is telling me Dallas, but my heart is telling me Portland because every time I doubt them, I'm incorrect. So I'll go 2-1 Portland on this one. I'm still not fully trusting Dallas yet either. Not fully.
They've earned my trust. The next game is another team who has earned my trust, who didn't have it early on. Colorado going to Houston.
Yeah.
One of the more interesting ones from the odds perspective, Dynamo are plus 138, Rapids are plus 190, draw is 250. I think the Rapids have gotten back to who they are. They figured it out. Rubio's in good form, and he's streaky, so I think he's got one more game in his little streak before he cools down during the international break. I think the Rapids go to Houston and win. Jarrett, what you think?
Yeah, I'm not sold on. I think Houston is taking steps. This is
start Darwin
steps.
Quintero. That's a step to take on a regular basis.
Jesus.
Please.
That's a hell of a first step to think of.
I know. Start the guy.
Yeah, but I think they're taking steps in a really good way, and I think they will be very fun. But I thought, and I'm with you. I thought Colorado was kind of. In hindsight, like I wondered if they'd figured it out, and then I wasn't sure, and now I think they might have. And just that confidence of that's 2 games now with Atlanta and Kansas City where you didn't get bludgeoned early in the game for your mistakes, and you might benefit, and you ended up from it and winning it. Maybe now they've got that confidence back.
John, Houston, Colorado, what you thinking?
Get Houston now. If you're playing them, I think they'll be better as the season goes along. I'll go with Colorado on that plus 190.
I think Colorado, Mike, is one of those teams that, we talk about certain players carrying a team, and you don't put Diego Rubio in that, elite class in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But when he is on, Colorado is as good as anybody in the league. He makes them go.
I agree. And I think you could say the last 130 some minutes that Colorado has played, Rubio has played at that elite level.
Yeah.
And I like Colorado here against Houston. I don't know, how long they can kind of sustain this form, but just that very, very small sample size of the last 180 minutes, I've really been impressed with Colorado. And, maybe it was just a story of get us out of the Champions League and now we can kind of focus on MLS and not have to deal with, the weirdness that goes along with Champions League. It might have just been a mental hurdle for them.
Could be. I'm going to have nightmares now that Alex Pacine in the Twitch pitch has said there are feral peacocks and peahens. Feral in a few places in Miami. I'm going to have nightmares.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
Nope. It's like I was talking about the world order if velociraptors are being shown.
Feral peacocks and peahens? Nah. Alex, I need to know where they are. So when we go down there, hopefully they haven't migrated up to Fort Lauderdale because I'm not going anywhere near feral peacocks.
No.
I'd rather take my chances with the plague-carrying prairie dogs in Colorado than feral peacocks.
Yes, I think I can handle a prairie dog if I have to. I'm not trusting myself with a feral peacock at all. Good grief. MLS After Dark is in Utah. Real Salt Lake hosting Nashville. And are we worried about Nashville? They 8 games on the road to start things. So the results aren't going to be as good as they could be. Keep that in mind. 4 points so far, but it's trended downward. They lost in Dallas. They drew in Minnesota. They won in Seattle week 1. RSL trending upward. 2 wins in a row. They have not lost this season. Jared, is this your new team? Are you going to drop the Quakes and become an RSL fan?
I'm never going to drop the Quakes. How dare you? First of all,
checking.
No, I enjoy RSL because RSL is spicy. My favorite thing about RSL now being that RSL has decided, I guess they have a blood vendetta against Charlotte because Charlotte decided to. Charlotte picked the wrong team to go after. I'm here to tell them right now. I do really like what RSL's doing though. So I'm excited for them.
I do too.
You, RSL.
RSL's plus 155. The draw is plus 200. Nashville's plus 200. The odds makers are throwing their hands up on this one and don't know what to do. I'm going with RSL continuing this. I just think Mastroeni is one of those guys that you get the tide going in a certain direction, and he can absolutely keep that kayak moving, pumping the oar to get it going. He just rides waves so well with a team. He's such a player's manager in that sense. I think he can continue to do that against the Nashville team, Mike, that probably is sick of getting on a plane right now.
Yeah, boy. Well, I mean, you knew they weren't going to be happy with being thrown into the Western Conference. Yeah. And then on top of it, all the travel to start the season that they've had. But, you're moving into a new stadium that wasn't going to be ready in time for the season to start. So, unfortunately, this is kind of the consequence of that. Safest bet in sports is a Nashville draw. This feels like a scoreless draw to me.
I could absolutely see it. Nashville does know their way around a scoreless draw from time to time when they need to. And maybe that's what Gary Smith does coming into this is like, you know what? We got to get something to go into this break. Let's lock things up.
And it'd be a good result.
I think,
for them to get a draw at RSL.
It would be. Jarrett, what are you picking here with your newly beloved RSL?
Give me RSL on the win.
I am.
As I say that, though, like, Jason, I'm gonna use a point you've made in the past.
Okay, it's dangerous, but go for it.
How do we feel about teams that have an incredibly backloaded home schedule?
They always make the playoffs every single time.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think that Nashville's going to be fine. They're going to figure it out,
100%.
And they've got such a backloaded home schedule.
Yep.
They're going to be right as rain.
100%. Absolutely.
It might be a little dicey for a bit, but they'll figure it out.
They will. I do really wonder what's going on with why they spent so much money on Ake Loba and he doesn't play. No offense to CJ Sapong, but man, that's a weird one to me. John, what's your pick?
I'm going to go with RSL here.
Okay.
I think that Nashville keeps it close. I think it's probably something, 1-0, 2-1, something like that. But just the idea of hopping on a plane and continuing to do that for Nashville gets a little tiresome. So I'm going to go with RSL.
3 games on Sunday, and maybe this is the game of the week. 1 versus 3 in the East. Columbus on the road in New Jersey at Red Bull Arena. Red Bull's minus 125, draws plus 250, Columbus plus 350. That's a really eye-popping number. But the Red Bulls have been really good this year. Really good. Jarrett, what are you picking here?
Red Bulls. Gerhard Struber seems to have figured things out in a very positive way for Red Bulls, and they're not. I guess part of this goes back to what we saw the other night with the twos of Red Bulls are trying to not be a one-trick pony. It's fun.
They are with their academy. I mean, it was a little eye-opening to see so many technical players come through, and they pressed and they did what they do, but they could also play more than I'm used to seeing the Red Bulls. Like, they didn't feel like they were allergic to the ball, the round thing that you have to put in the back of the net. It was nice to see. And this is a much better team than I think they were last year. I think they get the win. I think Red Bulls get the win against Columbus. As good as Columbus is, I think Red Bulls get the win at home. John, what do you got?
Red Bulls at home, definitely.
These are two teams, Mike, that I think, we talk about Atlanta being a team to watch in the Eastern Conference. These are two teams that are in that mix now that maybe we didn't have in the elite group coming in. I didn't. But now I think you're going to have to handle these two to win the East.
As it looks right now. And it's just so hard to be Red Bulls at home. They just feel so comfortable playing their style in that stadium, don't they?
Yep.
Really impressed with what Columbus has done so far. Really, really impressed, but I'll nod to Red Bulls here because they're at home.
Yeah, I think that helps them a little bit here. Two more on Sunday. Austin hosting Seattle. Austin favored kind of significantly, plus 110, draw plus 250, Seattle plus 230. Seattle did play last night, so that's a quick turn. I would assume that they are going from Leon to Austin to prepare for this. They are a little banged up. Do the extra days help Raul Diaz get back into the team? Who do they have to rest? That's the tricky element of this, John. What do you got with Austin and Seattle?
I think that in games like this, especially when Seattle's dealing with either injuries or multiple competitions or what have you, Brian Schmetzer always finds a way. And it could be with Vargas and Reagan getting, extended reps over periods of time, not necessarily in this match, but always finding those guys, whether you bring them up from Tacoma or they're the guys on the bench. There's always this plug and play element that always leads to success for me. So I'll go with Seattle in a close one.
Okay. Jarrett, what you got?
You know what? Give me Austin. Austin played well against Portland. I get they lost that game. There's one shot on target in that game. Portland took it. Portland put it away. Austin took the fight to him. Give me Austin in a surprising win. Seattle, probably running a little bit low on energy, even though they were able to comfortably handle things, and good on them for showing everyone how to actually hold a 3-0 lead on aggregate in the first leg.
Yes.
Yeah. And no one is ever going to let you forget that, New England. You deserve to be shamed for it forever. But, yeah, give me, coming from Leon, having to come back to Austin to play in Austin. Give me Austin with the win.
I'm going to complete the trifecta and go draw. I still want to see Austin in a game like this. I want to see where they are favored. They are playing against a good team, though. That's a different situation than Miami or Cincinnati come into town. Can they take care of it here? We're going to see Austin later this season, Mike, and Austin is a team that I didn't have high expectations for coming into the season. They've been great so far. Josh Wolf's getting a lot out of this group.
Well, this is a really interesting kind of contrast, isn't it? Because you have Austin, who I think plays really positive attacking soccer, and then you have Seattle.
They can play that exciting soccer sometimes.
They're not going to 72 hours after playing down.
No. You know what I think about Brian Schmetzer? Because Burned is kind of with you on this on the Twitch pitch, talking about Seattle and how they play. They can open it up, but I feel like Brian Schmetzer is very comfortable putting on that black overcoat and just being the, we're going to come in here today, on the road especially, don't really do it at home.
Yep.
We're going to come in here on the road, and we are going to ruin your day.
Yeah.
We are going to make this horrible for you. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, and because of that, I actually like Seattle here.
I can absolutely see it.
I think like a 1-0 type Seattle. And Austin scored a lot of goals the first 2 weeks of the season. But I feel like Seattle's quality prevails here, and they get a result on the road. They get a win on the road.
I can see it. I'm glad that we're getting into this stage where, it's the thing about MLS. It's so hard to predict in general. And if you are actually putting real juice boxes on things, you're a total degenerate when you're doing that with MLS, because it's really hard. But early in MLS seasons, I think it's even harder because there's so much unknown about these teams and how they're going to come in. And then you get the CONCACAF issues with teams being tired, and you have injuries that have a bigger effect in MLS than I think they do in other leagues because of that drop off in level to the bench. It's such a difficult league early on to get a grip on. That's why I think, Mike, what Atlanta's done with all the injuries they've had, with travel to Colorado, with a couple of home games, being where they are, that's completely fine. And you have an opportunity with a team coming in off a CCL. At a minimum, they're going to be tired. At a maximum, they're going to be down because of getting knocked out. They're going to have that CCL hangover. And Atlanta has an opportunity, not playing their best soccer, to be 3 wins out of 4 at the end of this weekend if they can take care of business in front of them.
Good spot to be in, right?
Yeah.
And look, I mean, Atlanta's schedule has been kind. I mean, you've gotten to play the 13th and 14th best teams in the East. 3 of your first 4 matches have been at home, but you still have to take advantage of that. And it looks like Atlanta United, should they get a win on Saturday, yeah. I mean, 3 wins in your first 4. And again, I still feel like they didn't get run off the pitch in Colorado. Considering all that Atlanta United's been missing in the first month of the season, I'm absolutely taking that. Keeping in mind, too, you're only talking about a little more than 10% of the season being complete after Saturday's match. So a long way to go, long runway for this team to improve. But I just want to see – I want to see this team take another positive step. And, what that turns out to look like with the scoreline, we'll find out. But I just want to see – a little more sharpness, a little more crispness. I want Atlanta United to look like a team that's been playing together in competitions for a month now. And I'm optimistic that we're going to see that tomorrow.
Yeah, one thing about Montreal to keep in mind, even though they haven't been good in MLS play yet, they do have that win over Santos Laguna at home in CCL play. They have 2 pretty good road performances, losing 1-0 in Mexico in CCL play, a draw in the 90 against Cruz Azul. So they've stood up there. Even in MLS play where they haven't been good, they've been difficult to create a lot of chances on. When you dig into shot creating action, something that I track on players and teams quite a bit, Montreal not creating a ton, although they've created enough. They're right around 14 SCAs per game, and Jordi Mihailovic is a huge part of that. But defensively, they don't give up more than 15. It's 14 and some change on shot creating actions. And for a team with their record, Mike, that's something to keep in mind. Charlotte gave up a ton. They gave up a ton to Atlanta on the weekend. Montreal is going to be a tight defensive team, and Atlanta's really going to have to work to break them down. They're not going to be bunkering, but they're a good defensive team.
Yeah, but, just kind of thinking back to when Remy Gard was in charge of them and some of the matches that Atlanta played against Montreal in 2018 and 19, a lot of those aside from the Wilmer Cabrera, that little brief Wilmer Cabrera era of Montreal in late 2019, that's pretty much how the Impact / Club de Foot have played.
Remy Gard did like a bunker. He enjoyed the bunker.
Yeah, and where did that get him? He tried bunkering at the Benz early in the 2018 season. They basically threw it into the goal off a throw, and not literally, but it felt like it. And they tried to bunker on a 1-0 lead for like 80 minutes. And, Kevin Kratz kind of had other ideas.
Yes.
But Atlanta United has been very successful typically against the Montreal style of bunker compared to Colorado, Dallas, some of the other teams that have played very negatively against Atlanta United over the years. So, yes, they will try to do that. I don't think they have the petrol to be able to hold on for 90 minutes doing that. I feel really, really confident about Atlanta United in this match tomorrow.
Who, as we go into some fantasy suggestions for people, because we always finish with that on Friday, who out of Atlanta's lineup do you expect to have a big, productive day tomorrow?
In terms of fantasy points?
Yeah, it can get a little tricky with that, but just in terms of whether you're talking about, is it going to be a clean sheet and you're looking at a defender, or a defender who can get forward and do some things, or you're looking for somebody to get on the board with goals, with assists? Who from Atlanta do you think has a big day?
I think we see Josetu get an assist or two.
I can buy that
tomorrow.
I can absolutely buy
I
that.
like your style, Mike.
Yeah, I think Atlanta United tries to play through him, and his role, his positioning might be a little more dynamic because, does Moreno give you 90? Does Almada start? And that could affect his positioning a little bit. But I think Atlanta United consciously plays through Josetu tomorrow, and I could see Josetu with an assist or two.
Yeah, I absolutely can too. He's been really close this year to getting on the board with stuff. His play has been really good, but I keep going back to that Colorado game. He had 3 great opportunities in zone 14 around the top of the 18, 3 shots blocked that I think all 3 were on goal and all 3 could have found the back of the net. Josetu has been so good. We always go to Ryan Walker for his advice on fantasy here, and he has an Atlanta United player in his lock section, which I would maybe – Ryan always does better than me than fantasy, so I don't like to question him too much. But I would question Brooks Lennon as a lock because I'm not 100% certain he starts. And it's not a knock on Brooks Lennon. It's Ronald Hernandez has played it right back. You're very potentially going to get Thiago Almada and Marcelino Moreno, or one or the other in the starting lineup. I don't know if it's a lock Brooks Lennon gets the start because I think we're still trying to figure out what this lineup looks like, Mike.
I 100%. And Lennon might start and Ronald Hernandez might get a break.
He could.
That's possible too. Hernandez wouldn't be taken out due to form. It might just be to give him a break.
Brooks is coming off of a really good day too, in a wing role, but a really good day last
But
night.
I think Ronald Hernandez is coming off 3 really good matches for him.
Agree.
It's a dilemma. That's my thing when it comes to fantasy. Like I'm taking guys who I know are going to play 90. Josetu I know is going to play 90.
Yep.
Lennon I know less. And look, I mean, Joseph, I see not your Aunt Martha on the Twitch pitch. Joseph's always a solid bet, but sometimes Atlanta United just doesn't play through him in the same way match to match. So I think more from the standpoint of Josetu being secure to play 90 and the fact that he's been knocking on the door. That's the one I go with. Goodman's a good pick too. I like Ricky Ricardo. I like Goodman a lot.
I do really like that one because you get the defensive side of it. Like coming into this game, I'm with you. I feel confident. I feel like Atlanta should feel confident coming into this against Montreal with the tired legs, with their quality. I don't know if it'll be a high-scoring game, though. I really don't. I think it could be a 1-0, 2-1, 2-0 kind of a day. I think Montreal does a pretty good job of limiting opportunities, and they're probably going to play 3 center backs, and it's going to turn into a line of 5 when it needs to. They've done that all year. They're a good defensive team, so I'm not sure that it's going to be a high-scoring one. It's a little bit of a tricky one to predict. The lineup's really tricky to predict, just because Almada, I could see him start. Maybe the most of the guys who didn't start last time, I could see him start. Moreno's pretty close and sounds like he could have started last game. If both of them start, then you do have to make a decision between Lennon and Hernandez. You're going to start one or the other. And what does that look like? Does Tyler Wolff get bumped? Which probably, but maybe not, depending on some of the movement and the rotations and all of that. It's a tough lineup to predict. It's a tough game to predict who's going to stand out from a fantasy perspective in. It feels like a really tricky one of those.
But I like what Mike says about Josetu. So, Mike, I'm taking your advice. I'm taking your advice in my lineup.
God help us all.
Yeah, it's dangerous. That's definitely a value kind of a pick because he's one that a lot of people wouldn't have. And look, when you do these kind of fantasy leagues and you can have all the same players, when you have that differential one, it can really throw it out of whack. Ryan's other suggestions around the league quickly. Mamadou Fall to consider from a goalkeeper or a defender. He's always getting goals, it feels like. And they're playing Vancouver. I feel like LAFC is in a really good shape to win that one. We didn't even get into it because it's kind of a lock, I would feel like. Yeah, LAFC should win it. Fall could absolutely get on the board there. Value pick, goalkeeper, Alec Can, depending on how you feel about Cincinnati and Miami. Only 4% owned and very low value. That's a great value pick for Alec Can. And Miami hasn't exactly been productive in the attacking end. So really good one. Lock on the attackers, Lucas Zelarayan, 40% owned, but he's been Lucas Zelarayan this season. He's been my captain all year long. It's about the only thing I've gotten right on fantasy this year is Zelarayan being captained. He's been amazing. Against Red Bulls, a little bit trickier. Maybe you have a little bit of a pause about it, but it's one of those games that I could see with all the chaos, Zelarayan could still have a big game even if they do lose it because he's just that good. And you get him in 1v1 situations, he can thrive. Sebastian Brezza is the consider, 10.5 million on his value, 10% owned. Didn't get anything against Portland, but he's been very good this year for Austin, and a lot of it goes back to how you feel in Austin and Seattle coming off of CCL. And the value pick is somebody that John has in his team, Brandon Vasquez, coming off of a big day in Orlando, 4% owned, only 6.6 million in terms of value. Brandon Vasquez, not in an Open Cup game, but in a regular season game, lit it up last week.
Yeah, I just, he so infrequently plays 90. So that's something to keep in mind.
It is against Miami.
Yeah. We'll see.
Like I said, that was the main reason because I'm going hot hand, and you figure that they're going to do the same thing against Miami.
That's a good pull. I could see it. I see the rationale.
So value at 6.6, hot hand Miami, and I got Vasquez, and I've got Vela up top with him, captain, going against Vancouver.
I can see that. The Vela and his injury situation is always a little bit of a challenge. I'm going to keep my captain spot with Zelarayan, but Jarrett, last one from you. Any Atlanta United players you're considering this weekend to have a breakout kind of a day from a fantasy perspective or just in general against Montreal?
If he sees the field, Marcelino Moreno, building on what he did last week, just if he can, I don't know how many minutes fit he is, but he showed you what he can do in limited minutes. And it was such a tough situation last week for Hina Mahmoud to come into the game because you're coming into a chaotic game where Charlotte's trying to take control, but you don't have control. You can't just jump into the stream and go. You had to kind of wade out into the water, find the right current to catch, and then get into the flow of the game. If he can start, I think he could be a huge problem for Montreal.
Can see that. John, last thoughts from you on the weekend in MLS.
There's going to be some stupid fun. There's going to be some just matches not worth watching at all, but I am looking forward to the quick turnaround times of all the teams in CCL and how they behave on short rest.
Yeah, there's some storylines this weekend because of that kind of a stuff. We will get into all of that. Atlanta United plays earlier on Saturday. It'll be nice to be able to bounce around the rest of the league and watch games. Atlanta is a 4:00 kick, so 4:08 because it is a local broadcast. Our pregame coverage and the pregame coverage on Bally starts at 3:30. You can listen to us on 92.9 The Game, 92.9 FM. You can listen on the Odyssey app. You can listen on the Atlanta United app. Because there's games earlier. I don't think we're on Sirius XM FC this week. They're probably taking Galaxy and Orlando would be my guess, unless they're taking one of the 1:00s and then bleeding over. We'll let you know on that. Follow our Twitters, Mike Conti 99. He had to dip because radio station business is crazy, as we heard a little bit of.
Especially in 54-mile-an-hour gusts.
Crazy. Always crazy. Our game tonight is probably tenuous. Maybe, is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, I would say tenuous, but I would also say that it might be an interesting slog on.
I'm saying tenuous in the fact that it might not get played.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the way it would go. I'm talking about stay tuned on if we have a game tonight.
Yes, stay tuned on if we have a game, but if we do, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, top-ranked team nationally on both boys and girls side, Harrison going up against Walton. Good Cobb County stuff. Great high school soccer coming up this evening, hopefully weather.
Boo, Walton. Sorry.
Wow.
It's just going to happen.
All right.
Look, I grew up with an inferiority complex across that county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Jared? Please.
Go to a Sandy Creek game. Let's see how that goes.
No, you don't want that. It's probably that's probably dangerous. I might get in trouble on that one. However, I am going to do an Eagles Landing Stockbridge game, which
I could get a little sideways.
It could. It could. I'm going to have to be a little careful on that one. I apologize to any Stockbridge fans out there in advance. That's next Tuesday. John.
Then again, you don't even know, man. You don't even you don't even know the issues, buddy.
John was no part of that one.
We're scratching the surface on issues.
Yeah, well, it's
the
not. No.
My Cobb County inferiority complex is a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a very difficult one. Stockbridge, we didn't have quite. They were our big rival, but we didn't have quite as much heat with them. We didn't have a bench clearing brawl with them like we did with Sandy Creek. Yeah, it always cracks me up that we weren't even the only teams from Eagles Landing and Sandy Creek to fight that season. As the Thunder and Lightning are really picking up in my neck of the woods. So that's probably a good sign to say sayonara for the week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for all the questions, all the commentary, all the stuff. I appreciate it. Lots of fun this week. Lots of good conversation with all of y'all. Thank you. Be on the lookout for watch-alongs, for dips into the Discord in the voice lounge, as Jared is prone to do. There could be a lot of watch-along with MLS on Saturday night once I return home after a trip to the Bends during the afternoon. Lots of stuff. And then you got Clásicos upon Clásicos on Sunday. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Boca River, Chivas Atlas, 3 in a row with an hour break between the last two. Enjoy
Order in,
your weekend.
folks.
Order in, get the good food, or go somewhere and watch all of them if you want to be crazy like that. Enjoy it. Big soccer weekend. We'll talk about all of it on Monday as we get into a World Cup qualifying week with all the angst. But we'll start that on Overreaction Monday. Thanks, y'all. Have a good weekend. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.